Good afternoon and welcome to today's proceedings of the Senate. This being Tuesday, the 2nd day of July 2019. This afternoon, there will be 3 petitions which will be presented in the Senate by the Speaker of the Senate, and the first petition to the Senate is on Mwakitau land ownership dispute between Mwakitau residents and Isanga Iwishi Group Ranch. There will also be another petition to the Senate concerning lack of support for issuance of death certificates and facilitation of counseling by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs to families of the victims of the Ethiopian air crash. And the petition to the Senate on the Wajir West disposal site and the disgraceful abuse of the right to enjoy environmental rights under Article 42 of the Constitution will also be presented before the Senate by the Speaker of the Senate. The Senate Majority Leader will lay on the table of the Senate some papers. One, the report of the Auditor General on Kisii County Bursary Fund for the year ended 30th June 2018, the report of the Auditor General on the financial statements of Bomet County Car Loan and Mortgage Scheme for the year ended 30th June 2018, the report of the Auditor General on the financial statements of Bomet County Bursary Fund for the year ended 30th June 2018, and the report of the Auditor General on the financial statements of Bungoma County Community Development Fund for the year ended 30th June 2018, and the report of the Auditor General on the financial statements of Bungoma County Women Empowerment Fund for the year ended 30th June 2018. There will be a resumption of debate in the committee of the whole House. The committee up to 19th June 2019 had been considering some proposed amendments to the Statutory Instruments Amendment Bill, Senate Bills number 24 of 2018, and that particular debate for the committee will resume this afternoon in the Committee of the Whole House. And thereafter, the Committee of the Whole House will also be debating the Retirement Benefits Deputy President and Designated State Officers Amendment Bill, Senate Bills number 2 of 2018. The Kenya Medical Supplies Authority Amendment Bill, Senate Bills number 38 of 2018, is also active in the chamber. But this bill, the debate is for the second reading. The last time the senators debated this particular bill was on Tuesday, 18th June 2019. Other bills which are yet to be debated for the second reading but are in the order of business is the County Hall of Fame Bill, Senate Bills number 39 of 2018, the Persons with Disabilities Amendment Bill, Senate Bills number 1 of 2019, the Constitution of Kenya Amendment Bill, Senate Bills number 2 of 2019, the Public Finance Management Amendment Bill, Senate Bills number 3 of 2019, the Control of Stray Dogs Bill, Senate Bills number 4 of 2019. Also in the order of business are a number of motions such as the renaming of Murang'a University of Technology to Kenneth Matiba University of Technology. That motion will be moved by Senator Isaac Mwaura. The creation of support services for members of the disciplined forces and their families. That motion will be moved by the Senator for Vihiga County, Senator George Kaniri. If you're just joining us, we are getting ready for the commencement of the business. And on your screen is the Senate Deputy Speaker, Senator Professor Kithure Kindiki. Good afternoon.
Tuombe. Ewe Mwenyezi Mungu, tukusihi ututazame kwa neema nyingi sisi watumishi wako ambao umeridhika kutuita ili tutekeleze shughuli muhimu za jamhuri hii yetu. Tukuomba utujalie tuyatende na kufikiria mambo yote yatakayofikishwa mbele yetu kwa njia ya haki na uaminifu ili kustawisha amani, ufanisi na heri ya nchi hii yetu na wale ambao haja zao umezikabidhi mikononi mwetu. Amen.
Order number 1, administration of oath. Order number 2, communication from the chair. Order number 3, messages. Order number 4, petitions.
Order, Senators. Pursuant to Standing Order 2261A and 232B, I hereby report to the Senate that a petition has been submitted through the clerk by residents of Taita Taveta County, Mwatate Sub-County, Mwakitao location. As you are aware, under Article 119(1) of the Constitution, and I quote, every person has a right to petition Parliament to consider any matter within its authority, including enacting, amending, or repealing any legislation, end of quote. The salient issues raised in the said petition are as follows. The land on which the over 10,000 people in Mwakitao sublocation are occupying and its title deed given to Isanga Iwishi Group Branch, that the people of Mwakitao settled there in 1920, while Isanga Iwishi Group Branch was registered in 1972 and its title deed acquired recently. That Isanga Iwishi Group Branch members are mainly from the neighboring Bura location and have never settled in Mwakitao to either farm or keep livestock. The Isanga Iwishi Group Ranch has no right to claim ownership over the Mwakitao land, considering that Section 7 of the Limitation of Actions Act provided that if a person has been living on a private land for more than 12 years continuously and uninterrupted, the land becomes his through adverse possession, and B, that they have never attempted to evict the citizens of Mwakitao since they settled there in 1920 to date. Isanga Iwishi Group Ranch was fraudulently compensated for Mwakitao residents' parcels of land compulsorily acquired to construct Mwatate Taveta or Lily Road instead of the individual residents of Mwakitao. Consequently, the petitioner prays that the Senate hears and considers this petition, investigates the circumstances that led to the fraudulent registration of Mwakitao land as a ranch and acquisition of its title deed by Isanga Iwishi Group Ranch, and takes all necessary action therewith, including revoking the title deed and reissuing it to the residents of Mwakitao. Investigates the fraudulent payment of compensation for the construction of the Mwatate Taveta Holili Road to the Isanga Iwishi Group Ranch, and any other measure the Senate deems fit to resolve the matters raised herein. Honorable Senators, pursuant to Standing Order 231, I shall now allow comments, observations, or clarifications in relation to the petition for not more than 30 minutes. I see no request. Honorable Senators, pursuant to Standing Order 232.1, the petition stands committed to the Standing Committee on Land, Environment and Natural Resources. In terms of Standing Order 232.2, the committee is required in not more than 60 calendar days from the time of reading the prayer to respond to the petitioner by way of a report addressed to the petitioner and laid on the table of the Senate. Thank you. Very well, Senators, Honorable Senators, have a second petition. Honorable Senators, I hereby report to the Senate that a petition has been submitted through the clerk by Mr. Noor Abdulrashid, a citizen of the Republic of Kenya and a resident of Ali Mao village in Wajir County. As you are aware, under Article 119.1 of the Constitution, and I quote, every person has a right to petition Parliament to consider any matter within its authority, including enacting, amending, or repealing any legislation, end of quote. Honorable Senators, the salient issues raised in the said petition are that the Wajir dumping site was established in 1992. However, at that time, the waste was manageable due to the low population and that the dumping site was far from human settlement. 2, that waste disposal and management has been highlighted as a major problem in Wajir County. In particular, the residents of Ali Mao village have had to bear the brunt of the negative impact of the Wajir disposal site, which continues to jeopardize their health and livelihood. 3, that the government has been using the dumping site illegally to dump raw medical waste, human and medical waste, as well as hazardous materials. 4, that some of the risks the disposal site is exposing the residents of Wajir County to also include skin and blood infections resulting from direct contact with water and from infected wounds, eye and respiratory infections resulting from exposure to infected dust, especially during landfill operations, different diseases that result from the bites of animals feeding on the waste, intestinal infections that are transmitted by flies feeding on the waste, and cancers resulting from exposure to hazardous compounds and chemicals. 5, there is now little grazing land, as most of the land is covered by the dumping site, where the livestock is susceptible to serious health risks since they are exposed to harmful toxins. 6, that as a result of the mismanagement of the waste disposal site, water in and around the local community is contaminated, thereby exacerbating the problem even further, as pathogens from human waste have caused numerous cases of cholera and hepatitis, as well as diarrhea, leading to the deaths of some residents of Ali Mau village. That there is an overwhelming possibility that many people are likely to die as a result of the continued operation of the dumping site, and that the residents are now concerned about the increased patients in hospitals within Wajir County. 8, that efforts have been made to have the matter addressed by the county government of Wajir, the National Environmental Management Authority, and other relevant authorities, but there has been no change of situation. The petitioner prays that the Senate investigates the matter and intervenes with a view to, 1, ensuring that the lives and livelihoods of the residents of Ali Mau village in Wajir County are safeguarded against the harmful effects of mismanagement of waste disposal site, ensure that a national environmental inspector is appointed by the National Environmental Management Authority pursuant to Section 117 of the Environmental Management and Coordination Act of 1999 to ensure that the county government of Wajir restores the settlement areas affected by the disposal site and that it is relocated and the area cleaned up. B, ensure compensation of persons in Ali Mau village whose health has been negatively affected as a direct result of the devastating impact of the dump site. Ensuring that the funds through the national and county budgeting processes are availed to the Wajir County government for rehabilitation of the dump site. Ensuring that the people making their comments. Senator Cheruyot.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I'll be as brief as directed. The prayers by the petitioners are very interesting when you listen to the challenges that residents of Wajir have had to go through because of this challenge of refuse removal and waste management. Mr. Speaker, if you follow keenly the challenges that many of our county governments continue to face, you will realize that this whole issue of waste management is not unique to Wajir alone. I think almost all county governments without fail have not been able to handle this menace. And part of it is because of the amount of investment that will be needed to have a proper refuse or waste management system in place, and also because of cultural sensitivities, Madam Speaker. In many of our town or urban counties, and I'd use Kisumu, for example, where Senator Rose Nyamunga comes from. Kisumu is a very beautiful city, but not until you approach Moi Stadium, and there's a big ISO of tons of waste that have been left lying. And I know the challenge that the previous governor faced, and which, having spoken to Governor Nyong'o recently, continues to face, is where do you move this waste to? Because on many occasions the residents, and I have seen this happen even in my own county, where when they tried to relocate or establish a proper waste management site, the people rose up in protest and they asked the governor, so you want to take development elsewhere, then you bring us garbage into our village. Therefore, it tells you that this whole issue is not only technological, but also cultural. This is what I would propose for the committee in concluding, Mr. Speaker. This is what I'd propose. You know, earlier on in last Senate, Mr. Speaker, we had a unique situation where about 4 or 5 counties that did not have county headquarters, apart from the shareable revenue that we divide across all the 47 counties, we set aside some amount of money for 4 or 5 counties to build their headquarters. Because this appears to be a unique challenge to all the 47 counties, could the committee perhaps consider recommending that we pick at least 2 or 3 counties and set, as we do division of revenue, set aside a significant amount of resources to ensure that we use these 3 or 4 counties as sort of modern examples of how you properly manage waste? Then the rest of the counties will be able to manage it well. With those very many remarks, Mr. Speaker, I support. Thank you.
Good recommendation. Senator Wetangula.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, like the distinguished Senator for Kericho has said, that petition from a resident of Wajir would pass for a petition from each and every of our counties. Mr. Speaker, it is not like the petitioner is calling upon us to legislate that there's the absence of law. We have the Environmental Management Act and the National Environmental Management Authority that is empowered immensely to protect the environment, to stop people from construction on riparian land, to stop dumpings, Mr. Speaker, and to make sure the environment is safe. We saw a movement in the right direction, Mr. Speaker, by banning the use of single-use plastics. But if you listen to that petition carefully, Mr. Speaker, it tells a lot of things. The petitioner is even appearing to say that there's raw human waste being dumped on the dump site. How human waste is finding its way on a dump site, Mr. Speaker, is a question that the committee must thoroughly investigate. But more important, Mr. Speaker, there is sufficient technology on the market. How do cities like Shanghai with 25 million people manage their solid waste? How do cities like London manage their solid waste? How do cities like Calcutta manage their solid waste? Wajir town must be having a population of under 100,000 and is choking with solid waste, Mr. Speaker. When my distinguished nephew, the senator for Nairobi, stood up, I thought he was going to speak about the Dandora ISO.
Senator Wetangula, who is distinguished? Is it the nephew or the senator? Where is the distinction?
He's the distinguished senator for Nairobi, who is also my nephew, and therefore he's a distinguished nephew. Mr. Speaker, I thought he was going to speak about Nairobi Dandora ISO. You go to Kisumu, same thing. I have a pile of letters from my own county, residents protesting about dumping. The question is not dump sites. The question is the ability of cooperation between the national government and the county governments to set up solid waste management process by erecting incinerators and sorting components so that all the solid waste that we have is burned away and converted into energy, converted into manure, and other byproducts, Mr. Speaker. So this petition, Mr. Speaker, should enable the committee concerned to have a holistic approach and look at the whole country, whether it's Mombasa, whether it's even small towns like Salga, you pass there, you see solid waste by the roadside. It is a real serious problem that we need to deal with. I do not quite agree with Senator Cherio that we pilot in 2 counties. What we need to do as a House is carry out an assessment of the needs of each and every county. And if we really care about the environment, have a direct provision of resources in the budget for each county for solid waste management. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Keep it brief so that we can have a few more contributions. Senator Faria. Yes, it is.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. In terms of this dam site, I had an opportunity to visit that dam site, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I think Senator Professor Ongeri and Senator Abdullahi will attest to this. No one is allowed to put hospital waste into a dam site, Mr. Speaker. And that is what is happening to this dam site, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, there is also another issue around, expired food being dumped into this dam site, Mr. Speaker, including, Mr. Speaker.
Order, senators, please consult in low tone. Senator Cheruyot, having had an opportunity to be heard, you are now busy in a protracted salutation exercise. Just consult in low tones. You can even sit next to the Senator for Nakuru and consult. Proceed, Senator Faria.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the expired, food, expired drinks, including expired alcohol, Mr. Speaker, is dumped into that dam site, Mr. Speaker. And this dam site does not even affect only the residents of Alimau. It also affects Bula Barwako and another Bula called Bula Hodan, Mr. Speaker. 3 villages, major villages, that is just close to that dam site, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, when these children are just, do what they do best, playing around, they find, dumped alcohol, expired alcohol dumped. They drink that alcohol, Mr. Speaker. Now, Mr. Speaker, that means children of those villages are exposed to drug, not out of their choice, but what the malpractice that is going on in that dam site, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker.
Yes, be brief. We are not debating, eh? We are not debating. We are making observations.
Yes, Mr. Speaker.
And then almost done with your 3 minutes.
Mr. Speaker, in terms of, if waste is mismanaged, Mr. Speaker, this leads to, environment. It has an environmental hazard, and in terms of greenhouse emissions, Mr. Speaker. And these are some of these things that needs to be addressed, Mr. Speaker. The Constitution of Kenya, Article 42 on the environment provides, and I read, every person has the right to clean, health environment, which includes the right to have an environment protected from benefits of present and future generation through legislation and other measures, particularly those contemplated in Article 69, to be obligations related to the environment fulfilled under Article 70, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, even under Part 2 of the 4th schedule of the Constitution also explicitly provides that county government shall be responsible for refuse removal, refuse dumps, and solid waste.
What is your observation? We are making observations. We are not debating. We are not learning environmental policy.
Mr. Speaker, thank you.
Making observations about the petition.
Mr. Speaker, thank you. But the things that are raised in this petition are very grievous issues, Mr. Speaker. And these petitioners must have felt Senate is the best way to handle this issue, Mr. Speaker. And that's why they brought their petition to the Senate, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I am requesting the committee concerned to do thorough due diligence in terms of the failing of the county officials to protect the residents who are vehemently complaining. And Mr. Speaker, even about 1 week, the resident actually protested, and there was even no dumping that was ongoing in that site, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, these have very far-reaching implications on the lives and the livelihoods of those people, and this needs to be addressed adequately. And I agree with the other senators. These are something that learning should be generated so that other counties can also follow.
Very well, very well.
I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Very well. Senator Professor Ongeri.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The question of solid management in this country, I'm sorry, is in a very sad state. We are all fully aware that one of the pillars of UN habitat in this country, which is the headquarters of UN, is about solid waste management. And there are areas that this organ or this organization has been able to help these various towns and cities. Right here in Nairobi, Mr. Speaker, the amount of solid waste which is deposited in Dandora can be able to generate enormous megawatts of energy, apart from enormous tons of fertilizer to be able to help this country move forward. In my little town in Kisii, unfortunately, this waste management is in the backyard of a hospital. And when you talk of health and sanitation, and you find a mound of solid waste within that region, it creates a very sad story. In Wajir, it's even more interesting. I had an occasion to work there. In that rubble of solid waste, there are other unexpired drugs or expired drugs. There are some of those other weaponaries that were deposited there or disposed there, and therefore pose a dangerous effort for them to be able to sort them out. So what is the solution? What is the proposal in this petition? I think now it has come a time when we should use the new urban agenda, which clearly spells out how towns and urban centers need to be run and how to segregate the waste for energy, the waste for water purification, the waste for many other purposes. In other words, you turn waste into resources rather than turning waste into waste. At this rate, Mr. Speaker, this country is running into a complete village of inhabitants with waste disposal all over the place, like I saw in Abuja and in these other places where people even go towards the roundabout and they find it convenient to dispose their disposal there. I support this petition. When it's prosecuted by the committee, we shall be ready to give it new ideas and impetus to move forward to a better solution.
Very well. Senator Dr. Ali, comments, observations? 3 minutes.
Mr. Speaker, first foremost, I support the petition, and as it has been stated by many of the senators, this problem is countrywide, and it's not only Wajir. But the one of Wajir came up because the villages around surrounded the area. So as when the place which was for the dump site, people grew, came more, and people built houses, and now it is in the middle of the town, which becomes a problem to the kids, the animals, and everybody who goes to the place. The other problem Wajir has, Mr. Speaker, which many of you don't know, is that those who can afford have got themselves septic tanks. All the others use bucket latrines. So when the county government staff collect some of these things, instead of taking to out of town, they decide to go and just dump it there. So these problems of the waste disposal, of the solid waste from the human beings itself, the feces and all this is a problem. The other one is that the ministry, I mean the health sector in the county have incinerators in the hospital. But the private sector hospitals or the clinics in town are not properly managed by the public health, I think, sector. So in the process, they go and dump all their wasted drugs and needles and all those things in the dump site. And when animals and children pray, they really suffer. So I will urge the committee to try as much as possible, as fast as possible, to go to Wajir and see. We are ready to accompany them and help them in whatever is possible. They go and see for themselves as an example of what of the problems in the rural counties, Mr. Speaker. Thank you very much.
Very well, Senator Mutula Kilonzo Jr.
Thank you, Speaker. The question of waste, in my view, Mr. Speaker, and I will thank the people who have brought this to the attention of the Senate, is a matter we should take up as a Senate because it's a devolved function. It amazes me, Mr. Speaker, that we actually think that solid waste, even human waste, is something that should be looked down upon. In my forays in Rotary, I went to Kibera through an organization called Ufanisi. The people of Kibera have used waste to recycle waste. Now they're using it for cooking. They produce gas. So just like Senator Ongeri is saying, we can use waste in Nairobi and many other places for something that is useful. I was in Berlin in 2015, and the most amazing thing is that the lady who runs the waste management in Germany is a Kenyan, a Luo from Kisumu. And we cannot manage waste in Nairobi. If we need consultancy, the consultancy is there. But my proposal is this, Speaker. The question of incinerators, I have come across needles in Makueni, dumped next to where children are playing. I have come across waste in rivers in Nairobi. The Senator of Wajir is the Vice Chair of Health. This is a devolved function under I think, the docket of the Health Committee. This matter must be taken seriously. I recall, Mr. Speaker, we mentioned the question of asbestos. Somebody went to Makueni, dug a 3-foot pit, and started dumping asbestos, and the people who were doing the dumping were not even wearing protective gear. It's not only waste. Human waste is not only segregated garbage. Mr. Speaker, where my daughter goes to school, they put papers in a different bin from bottles. They're simple little things that I think the Health Committee, in interrogating the matter of Wajir, can do best practices that we can even come up with a bill. We should demand that every county government where there's a hospital facility must have an incinerator and reports of how they are dumping both medical waste and any other waste. But to say that, like Nairobi, and Senator Wetangula was telling
What
me,
is it, Senator Abdullahi? Ali.
Mr. Speaker, sir, while I agree with the Honorable Senator, this is not only for the the Committee of Health, but it should also involve the environment.
Order, Senator. Order. Are you trying to commit the petition? Please conclude, Senator Kilonzo Jr.
yes, I think Senator, we call him the Italian Senator, Bascolini. He was, it was said in jest, so that he doesn't interrupt. Mr. Speaker, I think that the Health Committee can help even the health component, so that either it's dumping of asbestos, dumping of waste, dumping of paper, we can do this a little better. And we can help Nairobi. So that the waste in Nairobi is not like Senator Wetangula was mentioning, Mr. Speaker. The question of management of waste in Nairobi is a cartel, mafia. If you touch, you die. Thank you.
Thank you. Speaking of Nairobi, Senator Sakaja, 3 minutes. Distinguished nephew of the Senator for Bungoma.
And proudly so, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker,
But you should also tell the House whether Senator Wetangula is also your distinguished uncle.
Mr. Speaker, Senator Wetangula certainly is distinguished, and my distinguished uncle. As we say at home, Hota. Mr. Speaker, you've had members decrying the sad state of environmental management in this country. We have countries like Sweden that import waste from other countries, from the neighbors, because they know the value of that waste. And I'd like to implore upon this committee, even as I look into this matter, because everyone who's spoken has touched on Nairobi. I've brought statements on the issue of waste management in Nairobi, to pass by and see Nairobi, but even as I deal with it, to investigate the budget lines that are put to waste management and compare it with the state. Mr. Speaker, as Senator Mutula, I think, has just slightly touched on, it is a cartel. It is a business. In fact, the amounts allocated there are sometimes put there to hide, because you cannot measure how much waste is being dealt with every day. There are thousands of tons. And it has become a cash cow, especially in the county of Nairobi. Mr. Speaker, we have known for years that we can do waste to energy. Why is it not being done, Mr. Speaker? I remember the last governor of Nairobi, Dr. Kidero, started the process, but of course it is more profitable not to get it done. Governor Mike Sonko, as he claims he's starting the process, it has not been done, Mr. Speaker. So this is something that we must come into and come down hard on it. Just recently, when we went to Pumwani, when we had an issue of babies being dumped with the health committee, we went to the dump site there and were told that the medical equipment is not incinerated, or the incinerator is not working because of lack of diesel, Mr. Speaker. That Nairobi County cannot afford to put diesel in the incinerators. So there is something fishier than us just saying that we do not know how to manage waste. We have the professionals around the world and even locally who can actually help us not only recycle that waste, but to put it into good use, whether it is power generation, whether it is actually, construction materials that come out from that waste, and fertilizer. So, Mr. Speaker, I urge this committee, especially the Committee of Health, because the Committee of Health, this is squarely within your mandate, together with the Committee of Environment, to kindly help us develop standards. Let's not do a pilot for only 2 counties, but let's start with the biggest producers of waste, which is the major cities, and use that as a template that can be used across the country. If done well, it can even provide a lot of jobs for our young people who do not have employment currently, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
Senator Were.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for this opportunity to contribute to this space for
committee or members of this House. In terms of Standing Order 232.2, the committee is required in not more than 60 calendar days from the time of reading this prayer, which is today, to respond to the petitioner by way of a report addressed to the petitioner and laid on the table of the Senate. Thank you. Other senators, I have another petition to read. Pursuant to Standing Order 2261A and 232B, I hereby report to the Senate that a petition has been submitted through the clerk by the residents of Murang'a County and families of victims of the Ethiopian air crash. As you are aware, under Article 119.1 of the Constitution, and I quote, "Every person has a right to petition Parliament to consider any matter within its authority, including enacting, amending, or repealing any legislation," end of quote. The salient issues raised in the said petition are as follows. Following the ill-fated Ethiopian airline flight from Addis Ababa to Nairobi that crashed on 10th March 2013, killing 157 people, among them 32 Kenyans, that the government, through the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, committed to support all the families of the 32 Kenyans who lost their lives by providing counseling services and acting as the link government agency in the attendant bureaucratic procedures. That the government has not fulfilled this promise, as no support counseling has been provided in spite of the post-traumatic stress the families are experiencing, considering the fact that they were not even able to retrieve their loved ones' remains for burial. That this has forced the families to seek private counseling at expensive rates from their own meager resources despite the tragic losses. And that the families have agonized to get death certificates to no avail, yet this role falls under the purview of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs owing to the fact that the air crash occurred in a foreign country. Consequently, the petitioner prays that the Senate hears and considers the petition, investigates the matter, and makes appropriate recommendations thereon. Honorable Senators, pursuant to Standing Order 231, I shall now allow comments, observations, or clarifications in relation to the petition for not more than 30 minutes. Please, this is not to debate the petition. This is to give comments, observations, clarifications about the petition, not about the subject matter. Senator, let me see those who didn't have an opportunity the other time. Senator Bogisio,
Yes, thank you very much, Mr.
at
Speaker.
one time Minister for Transport.
Speaker, I have more than that as an interest. I was also the immediate past chairman of the Kenya Civil Aviation Authority. And these matters are really matters that need to be taken seriously. Speaker, because I'm not going to delve into the subject matter per se, I would like to stand in support of the petition by the affected families. And when this crash happened, Speaker, a lot of Kenyans were affected. At that moment, the entire country would have supported this kind of petition. The entire country would have pushed. We tend to forget so quickly, Mr. Speaker. It's not even too long ago, and we're already having to wait until the family appeals to us. Mr. Speaker, I just want to ask Kenyans that we must really continue to care about a single Kenyan who is involved in this kind of thing. It's a terrible thing to the country. And the amount of trauma that these families have to deal with, especially with, as you say clearly, meager resources, Mr. Speaker. When the country promises, when the government promises to do something for families like this, it really ought to do. And so I'd like to say that I support this and ask that the House pushes for this to happen so that these families can finally put this matter to rest. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Well done, Senator Bogisio. Very brief, straight to the point. Senator Naomi Shionga.
Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to support the petition with the fallen families affected. Mr. Speaker, it is so sad when we stand here to discuss or to support the petition whereby the 32 Kenyans lost their lives in the crash, who are crying for the justice that was supposed to be given to them without even waste of time. Mr. Speaker, I stand here to support this family and request or urge the government through the concerned Ministry of Foreign Affairs to avail what is needed for them, because this family went through trauma. This family, it was affected. This family have lost their loved ones. This family are limping now, and they really need to be assisted. They do not need to come and petition what is right for them. So I support the petition and urge the government to look into the issue and the matter to facilitate these families, because they need to go back to the track and continue with their livelihood. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Well done. Short comments, short observations. Senator Dr. Milgo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for also allowing me to support this petition. And I wish to say that we are really sorry about these particular victims. Actually, as my colleague has put it, it was a sad day in Kenya, particularly after having lost those 32 people. And in any case, during that time, we actually learned that the government of Kenya had committed through Foreign Affairs Ministry to actually assist these families. And it is quite unfortunate to learn that to date, actually nobody has considered them, and more particularly without any body to parry, Mr. Speaker, the amount of trauma is so much. We have been told that there is very little counseling, and then this begs the question, counseling services, in this case, is not even providing finances, and those people need counseling very seriously. Secondly, Mr. Speaker, families lost people that were breadwinners, and we are being told here that it is even a challenge to obtain a death certificate. Without that certificate, Mr. Speaker, it will be a challenge to be able to make claims to those institutions where these various persons were working, and therefore we are urging as a Senate that the department concerned and the registration of persons and that's department to take up this role as a matter of urgency, and in this case to ensure that certificates are provided so that at least the remaining members of the family can be able to be given the dues that they are supposed to receive from the various institutions of work where the people were working. Actually, Mr. Speaker, issues of debt is so much serious that it is even a challenge that today we are standing as a Senate several months later to learn that this thing has not been considered. I believe that the committee who is going to handle this particular petition should do it as a matter of urgency, and in any case ensure that these families receive their rightful dues. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. And before I sit, I wish to take this opportunity to say that today I'm very proud because one of us, Senator Afshiro Alake, was able to trounce chance to become the chairman.
Order.
The chair lady.
Order. 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 Order, Senator Milgo. Order. Senator Milgo, you cannot just sneak in anything at any time, in any manner. Order. Senator Ochilo Yako.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me an opportunity to join my colleagues who have expressed sympathy and support for this petition. Mr. Speaker, as a nation, we must have a conscience, and as a nation, we must have a soul. We were quick as a nation to express our condolences, our sympathies for the affected families, but we have been slow to act. This petition is a stark reminder. It reminds us that when government speaks for us, government should also act for us. The families are traumatized, and the families are asking for what they need to have. For instance, most of them need to bring closure to this very sad moment by being assisted in having documents relating to their families, and as families, they also need to initiate legal action to get what is rightfully theirs. So in conclusion, Mr. Speaker, I beg to support this very, very touching petition. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Well done. What is it, Senator Were?
Mr. Speaker, I'm wondering whether it's out of order to stop Senator Milgo from congratulating Senator Bashiro for being elected the chairperson of CMD Kenya, the first woman to be elected as the chair of CMD. We should not have interrupted Senator Milgo.
Order. Order. What did you just say, your last statement? Senator Were?
Hello, sir?
What did you say, your last statement?
I said, sir, that is it in order to... For Senator Milgo...
To whom is that question directed?
To Senator Milgo. Is it in order for her to...
Order. You are treading on dangerous ground. And earlier, what is out of order, Leader of Majority? Senator Were, be careful.
Mr. Speaker, is Senator Were in order, Mr. Speaker, to try to challenge the Speaker? Mr. Speaker, in the name of raising a point of order against the Speaker, Mr. Speaker.
I have never had.
And Mr. Speaker, you must not allow this to fly, because if you do, it will create a very bad precedent. Because what the House want to know is who was out of order from Senator Were's statement.
Actually, Leader of Majority, I have been here 7 years. I've never seen anything like this. And I know there are members who have been here longer. Senator Kaniri?
Yes. Mr. Speaker, you recognize me to contribute contribute or on a point of order? Because I'm on
A
board.
point of order.
Point of order. Mr. Speaker, I want to draw your attention to Standing Order number 117, paragraph 2. Mr. Speaker, I've been in this House for very, very, very many years. This is the first time I'm experiencing this where a member is challenging a ruling or a directive of the chair. Mr. Speaker, this falls under 117, which is gross disorderly conduct, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I call upon you to take appropriate action against this member who happens to be a member of my political party. I'm totally embarrassed, Mr. Speaker.
Order, senators. Senator Haniri, you are one of the most experienced members of this House. You are absolutely right. Let me not say more than Senator Haniri and Senator Murkomen have said. But I just want to imagine Senator Haniri that perhaps Senator Were did not defy, because there's 117 talks about defiance. But the consequence is the same, nevertheless, whether it's a defiance or a challenge or whatever you call it. So Senator Were, be advised accordingly. Order, Senator Wetangula, what you are engaged in is called touting. I'm sure Senator Orengo understands that language. It's prohibited to tout. Order, senators, I would like to acknowledge their presence in the public gallery this afternoon of visiting students and teachers from Nakuru Boys High School in Nakuru County. And in our tradition, our usual tradition of receiving and welcoming visitors to Parliament, I extend a warm welcome to them, and on behalf of the Senate and on my own behalf, wish them a fruitful visit. Thank you. Now, we need to conclude on this petition, but now that we have a tradition here, the Senator for Nakuru, maybe you want to say something on behalf of everyone.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir, and I also join you in welcoming the students and the teachers from Nakuru Boys High School, Nakuru High School. It is one actually of the that has very good performance in my county and nationally. So I'm glad to have them here today, and I'm hopeful that in being with us today, we shall have, they shall be able to participate a bit and see what it is that we do when we come to the Senate or to Parliament. And also in the future, you never know, there might be some of the students there who want to be in these seats when time comes. I remember as a young student myself, when my father was a member of Parliament, coming to Parliament as a student, and I remember very distinctly watching the ex-president Mwai Kibaki then, and I remember being so impressed that I thought one day in time, I hope to be one of the people sitting in here. So that's not that far-fetched, honorable for the students. It's also a time in this country where we are working hard so that anybody can be anything that they so desire, and I am sure that that you are such bright students, you're doing so well that you can be anything in this country and actually in this world that you want to be. Thank you very much for joining us here today. And thank you, teachers. Thank you, students. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Kihika. And just before we proceed, I know I'm past the issue of the point of order purported point of order by Senator Were, and Senator Haniri had raised an issue around Standing Order 117. Now, just for clarity, the 117 deals with defiance and extreme cases of rebellion. Now, for future, and that is not to try and excuse Senator Were or Senator Dr. Milgo, but you may also want to look at 116 senators, which talks about a similar conduct of a lesser impact, like creating disorder or even raising a false point of order. So I would actually categorize what Senator Were was trying to do as engaging in trying to bring a false point of order, because there was no point of order there. You cannot bring a point of order against the chair. But, look at that area so that, again, there are consequences across the continuum from lighter misconduct to overly gross misconduct. Very well. Senator, what is it, Senator Agnes Zani?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Would it be in order to take a moment to congratulate Senator Abshiro for this great achievement she's done? As nominated senators, we are proud of her, and we'd like the House to recognize that women have made a step and to be able to acknowledge and praise her. So we
You are in order. You are in order.
Thank you.
You are in order because it's on a point of order, we've noted, but you can also do it differently, including bringing a motion and that kind of thing, if you think it's worth it. What is it, Senator Wambua? Let's not spend a lot of time on it.
Mr. Speaker, thank you. I'm just standing on a point of order because this is a House of Record, Mr. Speaker.
Yes.
Senator Haniri went on record to be embarrassed on behalf of a member of his party. And you have withdrawn the embarrassment. So is he going to step down that embarrassment, Mr. Speaker?
Order, Senator Wambua. I have now, you are now offending the same standing order I've just highlighted. Order, Senator. Senator Orengo. We need to conclude this petition. So I'll allow just a few more and then we leave it there.
Mr. Speaker, I'm speaking to the petition. I think this is a very unique petition that if we subject it to red tape and bureaucracy, the result will be the same kind of, crying without solutions. And Mr. Speaker, I would urge that if this matter is committed to the relevant committee, which it should, I think without delay, they should summon the responsible ministry, probably the Ministry of Interior and Foreign Affairs, I think both of them, and the Office of the Attorney General, because the Registrar of Births and Deaths is located in the Office of the Attorney General. Mr. Speaker, probably you cannot direct the work of a committee, but I would hope that, Mr. Speaker, you direct that that committee sits immediately, because it could be a big shame for this country when lawyers out there in the United States are already running amok with this matter, trying to deal with the consequences of that crash, when we are still talking about, identity cards or certificates of birth. So immediate action should be taken. And if there is any one thing we can show that we are firm with the families, we are together with the families, and condoling with the families, we should be in a position where, the government would be able to give these birth certificates within a period of 2 weeks. And that will require the committee to, be seized of this matter as quickly as possible. So, Mr. Speaker, I hope that when you're giving your directions, it should not be a matter that, again, is subjected to red tape as a way and a means of now summoning those affected and, go on forever for another 60 days. Otherwise, I also offer my condolences again to the families of those who are bereaved and those who were injured, during that crash and survived that terrible crash. I thank you, Mr. Speaker. I stand corrected, yes.
Thank you.
Nobody survived.
There were no survivors, sadly. Order, Senators. Senator Murkomen.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to support the petition and urge the committee to act expeditiously. In the interim, Mr. Speaker, instead of waiting for the report to be brought to the House, I also want the Speaker's office to, like Senator Rengo said, to be, if possible, to be in close touch with the relevant committee so that certain administrative actions can be taken in the interim where it is possible without the need of waiting for the report to be tabled to this House for implementation. So that, things like counseling can be done if that still needs to be done for the families. Things like certificate death and certificates are issued because they're useful in pursuing benefits of the families and including those who are dependents to those families. The death certificate, among others, is very important for them to continue their life in terms of benefiting from what their loved ones left behind for them. And so, Mr. Speaker, I offer my condolences, and I believe that, again, this House has demonstrated that there is a lot of Kenyans who have faith in what we need to do. And maybe use this opportunity to remind the country, because I might still get a time tomorrow to say so, but there has been erroneous image being portrayed in the other House that we are supposed to only discuss we have certain caliber of issues to be able to deal with. But I want to encourage senators that we should not be dragged into such sideshows. We must focus. We did very well in the KQ issue. At that point in time, that report of the KQ has contributed to the change in the transport sector in the Kenya Airways. We did something about Solai Dam. Some people said we have no jurisdiction. We did a very good job. Mr. Speaker, on this thing of the victims of this air crash, we must also do a good job so that our critics can only interact with us in terms of work and deliverables and not debates that have no legal and constitutional basis. So I offer my condolences, and I believe, Mr. Speaker, we shall provide a solution that the people of Kenya need in this sector. I know you know a number of people who lost their loved ones. My classmate, Dr. Tom Kabau, lost a brother. I know a number of people, PS of finance lost a brother. People I knew personally. I knew another Chinese guy who was doing a good job in the technical TTIs of AVIC. I interacted with him when they were presenting something about TTIs in the NYS. We also lost him there. So there are so many people that we knew personally and people who are relatives of our friends. And I think we should do something to make sure that such a situation does not occur again in the future. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Very well. Very well. I can see the interest is still very high. We are not doing very well. And Senator Wetangula, assisted by Senator Mutula Kilonzo, the lead touts. So, but I'm afraid, I think we should find a way of substantively dealing with this issue. I am persuaded that even if I allowed everybody to speak, we'll still not do justice to this matter. So with your indulgence, I would rather we proceed because we have some statements, and then I'm going to give some directions which can help us perhaps canvass this matter a little more substantively. I'm persuaded this House is doing a good job, and one way of ensuring we maintain that good job is to make sure that some of these issues we be innovative, so that when a petition comes, as suggested by both leaders, it's not just taken as a routine petition and it dies. So having said that, Honorable Senators, I want to invoke Standing Order 51, 1B. If you look at 51 1B, it talks about chairpersons of committees making reports once every 3 months, but it has a second part. And I want to read, a committee chairperson shall at least once in every 3 months, on such day as shall be assigned by the Senate Business Committee, 1B, and at any other time, if so required by the Speaker. So first of all, the statement by committee chairpersons is to be done once every 3 months, at least, meaning it can be more times. Secondly, the statement by the chairperson shall be done suo motu, by his own motion, in his own motion, or if the Speaker so requires. And I now want to require the chairperson to get seized of this matter independent of the petition. The petition has to run its course in terms of the standing orders, which says within 60 days, respond to the petitioner. But other than that, we can innovatively use 51 1B, and in 2 weeks, the chairperson of the committee should be able, having done what was suggested by those who spoke, should be able to report to this House what actions this House recommends or has been able to secure from government, even as we wait for the disposal of the petition. Other senators, you will know the chair of the committee because I'm now committing the petition to Honorable Senators, pursuant to Standing Order 232.1, the petition stands committed to the Standing Committee on National Security, Defense, and Foreign Affairs. In terms of Standing Order 232.2, the committee is required in not more than 60 calendar days from the time of reading the prayer, to respond to the petitioner by way of a report addressed to the petitioner and laid on the table of the Senate. Thank you very much. Very well. Next order.
Order number 5, papers.
Papers, Leader of Majority.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to lay the following papers on the table of the Senate, Tuesday, 2nd July, 2019. Report of the Auditor General on Kisii County Bursary Fund for the year ended 30th June 2018. Report of the Auditor General Financial Statement of Bomet County, Car Loan and Mortgage Scheme for the year ended 30th June 2018. Report of Auditor General on the Financial Statement of Bomet County Bursary Fund for the year ended 30th June 2018. Report of the Auditor General on the Financial Statement of Bungoma County Community Development Fund for the year ended 30th June 2018. And report of the Auditor General on the Financial Statement of Bungoma County Women Empowerment Fund for the year ended 30th June 2018. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much. Next order.
Order number 6, notices of motion. Order number 7, statements.
Order, Senators, we have a number of of statements. Senator Wetangula.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I wish to request for a statement on the state of the Malaba International Border Point. Mr. Speaker, sir, I rise pursuant to Standing Order 48-1 to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on Roads and Transportation concerning the state of the Malaba International Border Point. In the statement, Mr. Speaker, the committee should, one, state when the Malaba one-stop border point will be operationalized. 2, explain when the government plans to improve road infrastructure to reduce congestion on the road leading to and around the border point on the Kenyan side, considering that the Uganda side of the road is in good state. For instance, Mr. Speaker, for the last couple of weeks, trucks are forming queues of up to 25 kilometers, stretching from Malaba in Busia County to Kimaeti town in Bungoma. 3, Mr. Speaker, state what other plans the government has to address safety issues posed by congestion of trucks at the border. Mr. Speaker, some of whose cargo is inflammable and dangerous, but have to queue for hours on end in the sweltering heat of the area and could easily explode. 4, Mr. Speaker, state when the government plans to construct the Nairobi-Malaba Road A104 to a dual carriageway to enhance trade with the hinterland countries that use the Mombasa port. These countries being Uganda, Rwanda, Burundi, DRC Congo, Southern Sudan, and beyond. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Order Majority Leader, I know Senator Abshiro is a member of the majority coalition, despite the... So I know you might have been congratulating her, but I need to call you to order to allow me be on my feet. Very well. Honorable Senators, I would like to acknowledge the presence in the public gallery this afternoon of visiting students and teachers from St. Alphonsa Tisau Girls School, Makueni County. In our usual tradition of receiving and welcoming visitors to Parliament, I extend a warm welcome to them, and on my own behalf and on behalf of the Senate, I wish them a fruitful visit. Thank you. What is it, Senator Mutula Kilonzo Jr.? Senator Murkomen.
The Speaker, on behalf of the Senate and on behalf of the Senate Minority Whip, Senator Mutula Kilonzo Jr., who's just been called to his office to attend to something. The Speaker, I'd like to welcome the students from St. Alphonsus, and Mr. Speaker, to say that they have one of the best senators in this republic, best debaters, and that they're welcome to come to learn from the Senate and to get inspired by the debates that are taking place in this place, even as they learn about our legislature and the architecture and structure of government. And Mr. Speaker, I want to congratulate Senator Mutula Kilonzo Jr. because it seems it's actually Makueni County that visits the Senate than any other county, Mr. Speaker. I do not know whether Senator Mutula solicits for visits from his own schools, but for sure, when you go back home, tell your parents and your community that your senator is doing exemplary well when it comes to inviting, welcoming, and entertaining students from his own county. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Yako, are you on students?
No, Mr. Speaker, I wanted to speak on the statement.
Yeah, 3 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, but it's in order to welcome the students. You're welcome to Senate. Senate is a good place. You should aspire to be senators and more, so welcome. Now, having said that, Mr. Speaker, I want to say that on Saturday, I had occasion to fly to Busia County, and I overflew Malaba. Mr. Speaker, the state of affairs in that border place is wanting. It's terrible, it's bad. We saw kilometers of trucks queuing to get to Uganda. And when I inquired from people in the north, I was told that the neighboring countries, Uganda, Rwanda, Burundi, no longer use Malaba because that kind of waiting period is not economically or efficiently tenable. So they have decided to be using Dar es Salaam as a port and also to use the road to their countries. And we are therefore, as a nation, losing revenue that we ought to have earned as a nation. We are losing opportunities. So, Mr. Speaker, this statement is a statement that is urgent. This matter is a matter that is weighty because it's a matter that is touching on our economy, and it's a matter that if we do not address urgently and effectively, we will lose our strategic position as an entry or a preferred entry point to East Africa and the neighboring countries. Mr. Speaker, I hope that the committee to which it is referred to will give this matter the requisite attention and we get adequate response for it. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Very well. Chairperson of the Transport, get seized of the matter. What is it, Senator Wetangula?
Mr. Speaker, before you give direction, you've heard what Senator George Chilayako has said, and I believe even my colleague Senator Orengo must have seen this nightmare. I want to urge the Chair, Mr. Speaker, that given the gravity of the matter, you can imagine a queue of 25 kilometers of trucks waiting to cross the border. It is not something that we, and as Kenyans, we can be proud of. I would, Mr. Speaker, wish to beg the Chair that you give firm directions to the Chair of the committee to take up this matter and report back in the shortest time possible, if possible, within the next 10 days or less. Because what people are being exposed to, Mr. Speaker, and you have seen in Salga, where inflammable substances have exploded and killed people because of being packed in the smoldering sun the whole day. What we saw on Saturday, Mr. Speaker, is something unprecedented.
Chair of Transport. Vice Chair. Member. Nevertheless, Chair, the Committee on Transport has 2 weeks to dispose of that issue. And I see the committee is doing well. I've seen them in the counties there. But I want to direct the Chair of Transport and also other committees, when you visit the countryside, our counties, it is good courtesy to inform the host senator, and if you are working towards fulfilling the requirements of a statement that was raised here, the person who raised that issue should at least be told what you are doing, and if you are visiting anywhere, at least so that they can also have an input, so that it's not really a technical appearance. So if you go to County X, for example, like in this matter, if the committee, and I think they should be able to visit Malaba, then at least the Senator for Busia and Senator Wetangula, who has requested, needs to know your itinerary, so that if they want to accompany you or provide information, that can be done. So I direct the Committee on Transport to attend to that issue. It's an important national issue. Malaba is an exit and entry point for our country. Therefore, it's a serious matter. And within 2 weeks, report back to the House with the concrete recommendations. So ordered. Senator Sakaja, do you have a statement?
Mr. Speaker, before the statement, I was on a point of order.
What is out of order?
To request you.
I hope you don't want to commit misdemeanor.
No. To request you, Mr. Speaker, to really emphasize the point you have just made. Not only on committees that visit counties informing their senators, but even committees.
So, request statement.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I join you in welcoming the students from St. Charles, Luanga, to the Senate. This is a school that is doing quite well, a school that I know, and I'm happy that they've been able to come here to see what not just their senator, incidentally, who is on the floor, but also what other senators are doing, representing them and playing a part as one of the pillars of our democracy as an institution. I want to encourage them to work hard and to keep putting their best efforts in their studies, and that I hope we can interact with them at a later date. Mr. Speaker, I stand to make a statement on the launch of the Rapid Results Initiative for processing and issuance of birth certificates, as well as on meetings that have been on issues raised by fellow colleagues, on police reservists. Mr. Speaker, sir, pursuant to Standing Order 51-1, I rise to make a statement on two matters for which the Committee on National Security, Defense and Foreign Relations is responsible. Mr. Speaker, Article 53 of our Constitution states that every child has a right to a name and nationality from birth. The importance of ensuring all Kenyans access a birth certificate, which is the most important form of documentation, cannot be overemphasized. However, the challenges surrounding the issuance of birth certificates have previously, and many senators have raised this matter on the floor of the House. There have been perpetual complaints from the public on the delays in obtaining birth certificates due to the pending backlog in most counties. Mr. Speaker, sir, some of the concerns that have been raised include: one, the impact of the delay on children who require birth certificates to join preschool, primary and secondary schools and registration for exams; two, the cost of travel by parents and guardians who have to check the status of the application several times; and three, inadequate staff and lack of resources, lack of printing paper, which has been an excuse report to the public. Mr. Speaker, pursuant to this, I wish to report to the House that the Ministry of Interior and Coordination of National Government on 27th June 2019, at a function to which my committee was invited to be represented, launched the Rapid Results Initiative, RRI, for processing and issuance of birth certificates in Kajiado town. The initiative by the ministry is aimed at ensuring that all Kenyans who do not have birth certificates or ID cards obtain these crucial documents so that they can register even for the Huduma number. Mr. Speaker, all assistant chiefs have been directed to ensure that all births occurring in the respective areas of jurisdiction are registered immediately. They are further directed to ensure that all funerals taking place within the areas of jurisdiction have been issued with burial permits so that all cases are accounted for. Mr. Speaker, within this 1 month, there's the backlog of 1.3 million uncollected birth certificates are to be issued out, Mr. Speaker, across the country in every location, Mr. Speaker, because there are 1.3 million certificates that have not been collected, even as we deal with this. Through the initiative, the ministry aims at increasing the capacity of all registration offices across the country to rationalize the processing of issue and issuance of birth certificates, to reduce the current backlog of birth certificates, pending processing and issuance of birth certificates in counties, implement the Rapid Results Initiative for 1 month by giving resources and support to the Civil Registrar's Office at the county level, identify priority areas, that is children who need to join educational facilities, and facilitation of registration for exams, and create mass awareness on the importance of registration of births and deaths. Mr. Speaker, as chair of the committee, I have advised the ministry to get in touch, to instruct the county commissioners to get in touch with their respective senators and local leaders so as to furnish them with county-specific strategies during this 1 month of RRI, and that I've gotten a response on that, Mr. Speaker. And we hope that we can actually encourage those who have not collected, those who have a birth notification, or those who have never gotten it. When we issue this certificate, some people even at the age of 30 who have never gotten a birth certificate in Kajiado were able to get their certificate. So this is very important across the country. Mr. Speaker, on the second issue, on the 23rd of May, the leader of Majority Party and the Senator of Elgeyo Marakwet, Senator Kipchumba Onesimus Murkomen, requested for a statement from the Committee on National Security, Defense and Foreign Relations on the withdrawal of guns from National Police Reservists in Kerio Valley region, from counties in the Kerio Valley region. Senators spoke on this. Senators from Samburu, Wajir, West Pokot, Narok, Turkana, Marsabit, and Isiolo raised similar concerns on the impact of the withdrawal of NPR on the security situation in the respective counties. Considering the sensitivity of this matter, Mr. Speaker, I want to take this opportunity to invite members from those counties and even from other counties who would be affected or have questions on similar issues to a meeting of the Standing Committee on National Security, Defense and Foreign Relations that will host the Cabinet Secretary for Interior and Coordination together with the security leadership to deliberate on this matter on Thursday, this coming Thursday, 4th of July 2019, 10 a.m. in Shimba Hill, first floor KICC building, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, also for the information of the Senate, finally, tomorrow, the Committee of Security, Defense, Foreign Relations will be meeting the CS of Defense to conclude on a petition that has been brought on awards to ex-soldiers at 9:30 a.m. at County Hall. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, for your kind indulgence. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Sakaja. Senators, take note of those invitations so that we maximize the time when we get to meet the executive, members of the executives. That will reduce even the many requests for statements that we get here. So please note those invitations. Now, next order. The senators, in exercise of, what is it, Senator Professor Ongeri?
Mr. Speaker, I'm sure you are fully aware that we had wanted to, in accordance with the Standing Order 51B, present a statement on the Education Committee. And I see you are calling the second order before we reach that level. And we had submitted that statement in accordance with the Standing Order.
That one, I think Senator Ongeri is in the order paper for tomorrow. Very well. Order senators, I will direct that we defer order number 8 and order number 9. For order number 8, the recommendo, the senator who requested the recommendo is not ready with the amendments, and order number 9, Senator Ledama Olekimna is out of the country. Next order.
Order number 10, the Medical Supplies Authority Amendment Bill, Senate Bill number 38 of 2018, second reading.
I see no requests. Senator Sakaja.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to contribute to this bill and again register my disappointment at being highly inconvenienced. My talking notes were in this iPad and that iPad, but you cannot access anything, so I will just speak from the top of my head on this bill. Mr. Speaker, I want to congratulate Senator Mary Senator for this amendment, Mr. Speaker, that seeks to, in accordance to devolution, make sure that county governments indeed are better involved in the management, running of the Kenya Medical Supplies Agency. Mr. Speaker, we know very well that in our constitution, in the 4th schedule, one of the most important functions that have actually been devolved is the health function, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, when we devolved health, in fact, many people keep saying that maybe it was devolved too quickly because across the country, there are problems in many counties. People have not been able to access quality health care. You go to hospitals, there are no drugs. We have a lot of industrial action in our counties. We've seen challenges in Laikipia, challenges in Kirinyaga, Mr. Speaker, we've seen challenges in Nairobi County on the issue of equipment, on the issue of medical supplies, etc. But, Mr. Speaker, much of that has been because of the speed. We were trying to, Mr. Speaker, move from a highly centralized system where health was being managed from the national government to what we have now at the county governments, which include the human resource, the doctors, and the nurses. Mr. Speaker, on this particular amendment by Honorable Senator, Mary Senator, I want to note a few things. Number one, Mr. Speaker, we've come to a time and place that we must weed out the level of corruption that is going on in our counties. Mr. Speaker, in many of our counties, and I can speak for my county, Nairobi County. Mr. Speaker, Nairobi County, in most of the hospitals, whether you go to the, what we used to go to when we grew up, some of us were born in this town and we never had to go to the big hospitals. We had dispensaries, we had, hospitals just around that would be able to deal with the issues. We have seen that, Mr. Speaker, there's been a breakdown of the referral system because of corruption. And I say it for these reasons. Number one, when you go to a hospital, Mama Lucy Hospital, Mbagathi Hospital, Pumwani Hospital, and you get a prescription from the doctor, Mr. Speaker, 9 out of 10 times, that medicine to which you have received a prescription will not be found in that hospital. But the doctors are very quick to then follow up and tell you that if you go to the chemist out there, you'll be able to get those supplies. Mr. Speaker, if you look at many of these chemists, many of these pharmacies that are littered around our county hospitals and the national hospitals, you will find a direct with either administrators in the health sector at the national or at the county level. Mr. Speaker, that must be weeded out. Our counties are spending a lot of money when it comes to medical supplies. We are spending a lot of money when it comes to equipment, but dawa cannot be found, Mr. Speaker, in hospitals. In course, I have to say that because many of my people are listening to it in Swahili. So, Mr. Speaker, when we bring together the Council of Governors, who are going to be sending 2 representatives, as I read in the bill, the counties will also be able to make sure that the kind of stock that they require is what, Mr. Speaker, is stocked by KEMSA. It is very difficult to plan for a client who is not involved in the process. We know the medical needs or the kind of drugs that are required possibly in Wajir might be different from the kind of drugs needed in Kisii or needed in Kisumu for that matter. So that involvement, Mr. Speaker, is very important, and we want to make sure that those who've set up pharmacies and chemists in cahoots with the administrators of our hospitals are brought to book, Mr. Speaker. Number 2, we must look at the referral system in this country. Mr. Speaker, the referral system of health has broken down. Today, if you go to Mbagathi or if you go to Mama Lucy or to any referral hospital across the country, you find people coming there with ailments that ideally should not have reached a referral hospital. Mr. Speaker, unless we work on the dispensaries and the lower levels, all the way from level 2, level 3 until level 5, Mr. Speaker, we will have such burden at Kenyatta, at Mama Lucy, at Mbagathi, yet many of those issues can be dealt with at the primary healthcare level. So, Mr. Speaker, we want to urge that even as this bill is implemented, we must look at the referral system and make sure.
What is it, Senator Kenywa?
Mr. Speaker, I'm getting worried. Is it bad for when a patient has the doctor where he can get the medicine? Is it bad for the doctor just to direct, because to tell the patient you can get this medicine in a particular place? Is it an offense, Mr. Speaker?
Senator Sakaja.
Well, Mr. Speaker, that is not a point of order. That's a point of argument. But it is wrong, because I'm talking about public health facilities that should have medicine that has been paid for by taxpayers. The medicine has been bought, but the doctors, many of them in cahoots with those who run pharmacies, say that, or the local pharmacy in that hospital, say that they're out of stock, yet the stocks are there so that you can go and purchase it. It is actually an avenue of corruption in many cases, Mr. Speaker. And this one I have seen in my county, Mr. Speaker. Many times you will find that, in fact, the levels of stock of certain medicines, when it is reported, they say, oh, we don't have amoxicillin, we don't have this medicine, but if you go out there, you can get supplies. Many times, even beyond that, when you go for P3s, police stations should be able to have photocopying machines, but they don't know. But if you go across there, you can get a photocopy. It is corruption that we've gotten used to so much that we're even trying to justify it. In the case where that medical supply or that particular drug is not in the stock of our hospitals, and Kenyans must know it's their right, it's not a favor. that, that hospitals must be stocked with drugs that should be available to them, either cheap or for free, depending on the ailment. Mr. Speaker, when that case arises, in that case that drug is not available, that is when the pharmacy in your public hospital should tell you to go to a private chemist and can even specify which one, Mr. Speaker. So I stand firm on that point. Mr. Speaker, my people in Nairobi are suffering because many of them cannot afford some of these drugs. They are being overcharged. Yet these things should be available to them. We have passed huge budgets in this county. Mr. Speaker, as Senator of Nairobi, I'm proud that the first time I came here, we made sure 15.4 billion has gone to the hospitals, to Nairobi County government. This year we're talking about 17 billion. You cannot tell me that out of that 17 billion, a Nairobian should be told to go and buy medicine from a private practitioner when they have gone to a public facility that should be having those medicines, Mr. Speaker. That I completely disagree. So it is not wrong, but it is immoral. And it is an avenue through which corruption is setting in. Mr. Speaker, as I move to conclude, I was saying that we must fix the referral system to make sure that the entire value chain or rather the entire chain of our medical facilities is working. It cannot be that we focus on only the big hospitals, yet the small ones do not have medicine, do not have doctors, do not have personnel, Mr. Speaker. We must look at those primary healthcare providers. We must make sure, because we have thousands of community health volunteers in this country. Back then when I grew up here in Ngara, Mr. Speaker, there would be somebody who would come every so often to find out the state of health, and there were community health volunteers and they were taken care of. The volunteers only by name, they had a stipend. Today, community health volunteers across this country are not even able to get a small allowance to move around. Yet they are the ones who will tell you in this part of Nairobi, there is this element coming, there is this epidemic that might be coming, because prevention, Mr. Speaker, is ultimately better than cure. Finally, Mr. Speaker, a matter that must be looked at carefully, and I think KEMSA will play a good role together with other practitioners or other agencies in the medical area, is to make sure that the patient information management system is handled properly. Mr. Speaker, many Kenyans are actually suffering or their health is getting complicated because today you go to Machakos General Hospital and you're given certain drugs, you're treated there, but you feel that it is not good enough. So you come to Nairobi, you go to Kenyatta, and you tell the doctor a different story, and so there is no record of what drugs this person has been on, what kind of regime of treatment they've been on, and you might find that many people are getting drugs that either they're allergic to or that do not work well for them, Mr. Speaker. We must be able to have a card, and it's very simple, that we digitize, we use technology to make sure that if Senator Wambua is unwell, and he goes to whichever hospital in this country that is public, they can just check on that card and know that Senator Wambua is being treated for A, B, or C. These are the drugs he has been on, and because of that, we can prescribe these drugs for him. Mr. Speaker, we must take health very, very seriously. It is the most important devolved function. Mr. Speaker, in 2016, then I used to have dreams. I had dreams of being a governor then. And the biggest part of my manifesto, when I had that dream, was something I was calling Sakaja Care. Because in Nairobi, Mr. Speaker, I calculated that there are 486,000 households below the poverty line who, if just with 2.5 billion annually, with that card in Nairobi, they would be able to get medical attention in any hospital that is public, Mr. Speaker. 2.5 billion. But today, if you look at the budgets that we're running in this county and in many counties, a lot of money is being used on wastage, on trips, yet healthcare is the most important function. That money would go to the dispensaries, would go to the primary level healthcare outlets up until Mbagathi and Mama Lucy, and to make sure the hospitals are being run, and every Nairobian would have that Sakaja Care card and go with it and get health, and we'd be able to pump it in. In fact, even without the help of NHIF, we can be able to achieve it. Universal healthcare is one of the biggest pillars, but it cannot be done unless we put our money where our mouths are. And I want to urge the county assembly, I know my county assembly today, they walked out because of the bursaries, but I want to urge them, please, when they come down to look at their budget, because we've brought to them close to 17 billion, please put proper amounts of money for healthcare in Nairobi. We have White Elephant projects. We have, across Pumwani Hospital, and remember the issue in Pumwani, just across it, there's a White Elephant project that has stayed for years, that, Mr. Speaker, if we dealt with it, we'll reduce the kind of congestion in Pumwani. In Mathare North, Mr. Speaker, there's an almost 300-bed capacity structure that has stayed idle for years, that if we dealt with Mama Lucy Hospital, would be freed up, and many of these other hospitals. So I urge them, and I urge senators to implore upon their county assemblies, because health is a devolved function. It's the most important. Health budgets are being done at the county. Please build the capacity and implore upon your MCAs to put much more money and more resources when it comes to healthcare at the primary level. I want to congratulate Makueni County. Mr. Speaker, Makueni County gave us a presentation to the Young Parliamentarians Association on what they've been able to do, Mr. Speaker, even before UHC was launched as part of the Big Four program by the president, what they've been able to do in their county to make sure that their facilities, they have the drugs, their personnel are being taken care of. And Mr. Speaker, I must congratulate them. Finally, I've said finally twice. We cannot talk about the health management system, the referral system, and the drugs, Mr. Speaker, without touching on the personnel who will do this work. Our counties are treating our doctors and our nurses in a manner, Mr. Speaker, that leaves so much to be desired. These are very important people, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, an issue has come up, and I know it came to the Health Committee, and there had been a request because there are labor issues. What is going on in Laikipia, where the senator feels it is okay for you to buy drugs in private establishments when you've gone to a public hospital? What is going on, because that is the point of order I rose on, what is going on in Kirinyaga County, Mr. Speaker, must be dealt with as a labor relations matter.
Order, you are not on record.
Oh, sorry. Is the honorable member in order to insinuate that the senator for Laikipia he tells his people to go and buy dawahs from the public, whatever dispensaries of other people when the hospital doesn't have? Is that the way to treat the members of the House?
Is that what you said, Senator Sakaja?
Mr. Speaker, the answer will bear me out. When I made the point about people being sent to go to buy drugs in private establishments, the senator for Laikipia stood on a point of order and asked if there's anything wrong with that. So I have not said that he tells his people to do it, but I've said the senator of Laikipia, who is not, according to him, sees nothing wrong with people going to buy drugs, yet we've paid our counties. Mr. Speaker, unless he contradicts himself or changes his position, the answer will bear me out, and that was the point of order that he gave to me.
Okay, Senator Kenya.
Mr. Speaker, I can talk and repeat again. I didn't say that. It is only that Sakaja is insinuating that, and I was very clear.
Are you referring to Senator Sakaja?
Yes, I said Senator Sakaja, Mr. Speaker. Oh, sorry, it's just that maybe I was quicker. It's Senator Sakaja. And I didn't say that. I was just asking whether that's what he meant, and he was very clear. He did not mean exactly that. But now, he's insinuating that's what I meant. I didn't mean I'm comfortable with the patient leaving the government hospitals to go and buy drugs from outside. Or what I was asking is whether that's what he meant, Mr. Speaker.
Order, Senator Kenya. You asked what is wrong with, you asked whether the senator for Nairobi was in order to say that when a citizen should be referred to a private hospital, to insinuate that is improper.
Mr. Speaker,
I was listening.
Mr. Speaker,
and very carefully.
Mr. Speaker, if there is no drugs in the hospital, Mr. Speaker, and it is open secret, as he said, Mr. Speaker, then, Mr. Speaker, what is the doctor supposed to do with the patient? I was just asking, Mr. Speaker, if it is true, and he has said, he has repeated again, he has repeated to say, we don't have drug in the hospital, Mr. Speaker. And the patient has asked the doctor where to get the medicine.
But that's a point of debate.
But
that is the point of debate.
Mr. Speaker, but
he has argued that it is wrong, and I think he's correct, that it is wrong. Order, Senator. You know what the standing orders say. Senator Sakaja has argued, and I believe he's right, that it is not right for public health officers in public hospitals who claim that there are no drugs to direct patients to private entities. That is his view. And you rose on a point of order challenging that. And I'm saying you could have a different view, but that doesn't mean Senator Sakaja is out of order. It means that you have a different argument. And what you are supposed to do is not to rise on a point of order, is to wait until you're given your turn. I can see you're waiting to speak, although you are number last in the request, but there is time. So you'll still have time to say what you want to say. Conclude, Senator Sakaja, so that we make progress.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I was finishing on the matter of personnel, on how we need to treat and deal with this the labor issues that are coming up within our counties. Mr. Speaker, additionally, as chair of the Labor Committee, we're mulling over a bill that we're bringing to the House that will actually ensure that employees to counties are not necessarily just in one county, especially for skill sets that need inter-county transfer. Mr. Speaker, we don't have 47 neurosurgeons or neurologists, we don't have 47 radiologists, and we need to be able to make sure that they can be able to move across counties and have similar schemes of service, so that a doctor in Wajir can be able to work in Mombasa or within the region and be supported through our structures of devolution. So, Mr. Speaker, with those very many remarks, I really want to congratulate Senator Mary Senator, and I hope that we can actually put more flesh into this and take this issue of health as seriously as it is deserved, Mr. Speaker. Thank you very much.
Well done. Other senators, I would like to acknowledge the presence in the public gallery this afternoon of visiting students and teachers from Kanga Boys High School, Migori County. In our usual tradition of receiving and welcoming visitors to Parliament, I extend a warm welcome to them, and on behalf of the Senate and on my own behalf, wish them a fruitful visit. Thank you. Senator for Migori, Senator Ochilo Ayako.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I would like to welcome the students and teachers from Kanga National School. Mr. Speaker, that is a school we regard as a jewel in Migori County. It's a school that has been able to bring good students and good leaders into this country. Mr. Speaker, from that school we have two members of parliament. We have Anthony Tom Oluoch and we have Tom Joseph Francis Kajwang as members of parliament. And I want to encourage the students who are here to work hard to hem I. We are likely to get more leadership into parliament and other institutions through them and through other schools which perform as well as they do. Mr. Speaker, I want to wish them success in everything they are doing, and also to encourage them to be disciplined and to always do what is right. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. We continue. Senator Abshiro.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
On whose account the misdemeanor was committed earlier. But proceed, Senator Abshiro.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and let me not entrench more misdemeanor, so I will not comment on that, but thank you for giving me the opportunity to comment on the on this all-important amendment to the Medical Supplies Authority Bill. Mr. Speaker, I think I would like to congratulate Senator Mary Senator very much, because a lot of our legislation and a lot of our acts actually, even where are still reading as though counties do not exist, Mr. Speaker. I think it's about time this House, in fact, took stock and an inventory of all bills for their alignment to the Constitution, actually, number one, but also for the acknowledgement of the fact that we have two levels of government as we speak. Mr. Speaker, health, as everybody has said, is devolved, leaving only policy matters to the national level of government, so that the service provision, even including procurement, should have been devolved with just the KEMSA being consulted, so to speak. But as it stands, KEMSA does everything as though health is not devolved, and therefore this bill is very timely to provide a framework within which counties, KEMSA can collaborate with counties, can do needs assessment with counties, and ensure that what they're procuring is based on the needs within the counties and not just what they would like to procure. And as we've seen in the health sector, there's a lot of below optimal procedures and below optimal practices that have resulted in a lot of waste for this country, Mr. Speaker. As you know, by hierarchy, the health ministry actually and the health sector tend to have to be one of the most, should I say, mentioned for corruption, perhaps one of the most mentioned for misappropriation or for not providing the required services. It is for this reason that the universal health care and the strategic direction of the country has focused on UHS as an area of focus. Mr. Speaker, we've seen a lot of waste, a lot of drugs expiring because the drugs were not procured with perhaps county needs in mind or county needs assessments. So it's about time the health sector aligns itself to the Constitution, namely for the national level to remain with policy and policy frameworks and to really give the service provision to the front lines of service delivery, which is counties. Mr. Speaker, I'm very proud of the fact that this House is very keen to ensure that if there's anything that is contrary to the Constitution or anything that is undermining counties, that at least it will not be through legislation. Perhaps through practice, but not through legislation. So I would like to congratulate Senator Mary Seneta for these timely amendments. It's about time, again, we looked at all these things. For instance, she has amended even the title to ensure that counties are recognized as service providers for health where health has been devolved. Again, Mr. Speaker, I see in the section where the definition of the word medical supplies has been, I would like to mention that the medical supplies definition has also been enhanced to include therapeutic feeds, nutritional formulations, and this is a really major part of prevention. One of the big deal in our country is global acute malnutrition. Mr. Speaker, we have in counties, especially a county like Isiolo, global acute malnutrition that is 30%, it ranges between 27 to 30%. That is the threshold for crisis in terms of nutrition. And what that does, Mr. Speaker, it stunts the growth of our children, not just in body, but in the mind as well. And sometimes when I see kids, or I even see how sometimes even our children are behaving, I keep wondering, is it because of this phenomenon of really acute global malnutrition, and because we see kids that really are so stunted, not just in body, but also in the mind. And so in the next few years, we will have a generation of children in this country that are so disadvantaged both in terms of body and also the mind. So, Mr. Speaker, I'm very happy that in this bill, we're not just looking at curative, but also preventive, especially from the perspective of ensuring that there's good nutrition formulations and therapeutic feeds. Mr. Speaker, also the amendment in Section D, Section 3, E, where it also spells out how KEMSA enters into partnership with county government to establish drawing rights and maintain appropriate supply chain systems and drug supplies. Mr. Speaker, for a long time, I worked with the Global Fund system, and I know for a fact, and I can attest to the fact that there was always stockouts, but also not just stockouts, but expired drugs. This is because there's no system in place within KEMSA of triggering supplies go to our dispensaries and to our health facilities regularly and in good time. And therefore, I think this bill is very timely. It will provide a framework within which then stockouts will be managed, drug expirations will be managed, but also the needs of counties will be prioritized, not just from the national level. Mr. Speaker, as well, Section 5, I am very happy that we have not neglected the issue of personnel, and so this bill seeks to enhance the county's involvement in medical health personnel, especially for the authority, where 2 persons are competitively recruited and appointed by the cabinet secretary, but also 2 persons of the opposite gender. Again, I am very happy to note that this bill tries to make sure that our constitutional requirement to have not more than 2/3 of the same gender in any appointive or elective positions is also adhered to, and therefore I'm happy that she has looked as well at the issue of health workers and health personnel. Mr. Speaker, also Section 6, Paragraph 6, subsection 19 of the Principal Act is amended by inserting certain subsections immediately after subsection 1, which I think is a very timely as well. It says that where procurement is carried out pursuant to an agreement with a county government under section 4.1e, the authority shall ensure that there is consultation and proper identification of the needs of the county government prior to such procurement. Mr. Speaker, participation of the key stakeholders or the key client, in this case the county, is paramount. We cannot afford to have national agencies just doing whatever they feel like doing without even consulting or really working together with counties. So I'm glad that this, which did not exist in the prior act, has been taken care of. Again, but I'd like to mention that in paragraph 7, subsection 21(1), the Cabinet Secretary may, on the recommendation of the authority and upon consultation with the Council, make regulations for the better carrying out of the objects of the Act. I think we should say shall, so that then they are compelled to actually do it and not given a leeway to do it or not to do it. Mr. Speaker, I think this bill is very timely and will provide alignment not just to the Constitution, but also to the Health Act 2017, which assigns responsibilities to the county governments to procure medical supplies with respect to health facilities in counties. And therefore, I think it's about time the stronghold on centralizing things through either the national government or its agencies starts to be looked at and to be interrogated. And this bill does exactly that. It's interrogating that. In fact, not only should we interrogate as regards devolved functions, we should also interrogate other acts with a view to finding out whether, or with a view to really challenging whether or not they are suited for national or county governments, and also legislate around that. So with those few remarks, Mr. Speaker, I support this bill and hope that all other bills, whether for devolved functions or not, are interrogated by this House for their alignment and for their alignment to the Constitution and other pieces of legislation. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Ochilo Ayako.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me an opportunity to make my remarks on this bill. Now, Mr. Speaker, I would like to start by congratulating Senator for thinking about health, for thinking about counties, and for thinking about devolution. Mr. Speaker, devolution is the centerpiece of the 2010 Constitution, and devolution is what is in every Kenyan's lips and expectation when it comes to mode and methodology of governance in our current dispensation. Mr. Speaker, if you just quickly look at Article 174 of the Constitution that talks about objects of devolution, and go to paragraph H, which I proceed to read, to facilitate the decentralization of state organs, their functions and services from the capital of Kenya, and to J, which goes to enhance checks and balances and the separation of powers. Mr. Speaker, devolution envisaged that state organs, state institutions will devolve their services, will decentralize their services, and take them to as close as possible to the small or the average person in the village. So, Mr. Speaker, what this bill seeks to do is to appreciate that other than the fact that health is a devolved matter under the 4th schedule of the Constitution, it is important that institutions that offer, we fail to support and pass this very wonderful bill. Mr. Speaker, what will be
adequate supplies of medicine to our counties? Mr. Speaker, I've had occasion, to visit my county of Nyamira in response to the cries of our people, where there is a shortage of medicines. And Mr. Speaker, most CECs will tell you that oftentimes they will place orders to Kenya Medical Supplies Agency, but they will never meet the requirements of various counties. And in the process, you find that people will go to hospitals, they will meet well-trained doctors who will attend to them, prescribe medicine. But I don't know the experiences from other counties, but in most of our health facilities, at least in the county of Nyamira, patients will end up being referred to various chemists within the county. And I think that's not a good thing, Mr. Speaker. For us to be able to have a functioning healthcare system, we need a one-stop shop whereby a patient is attended by a doctor, medicine is prescribed, and there is a pharmacy within that hospital. In fact, Mr. Speaker, in most referral county hospitals, we have county pharmacists who have been employed by our county government, who are in charge of ensuring that we have adequate supplies. In fact, we have set up good storage facilities, including refrigeration systems to store medicine. So we should actually not have this problem of having shortage of medicine. And I'm happy that in acknowledging the fact that we need to have a very good interaction between the county governments and the KEMSA, the Council of Governors will now be represented in the board of this new proposed Kenya Medical Supplies Authority. Because, Mr. Speaker, it doesn't make sense. If you read through this act, does it make sense to have representation from the Ministry of Finance, representation from the Ministry in charge of devolution, representation from the Ministry of Health, and then you exclude the governors who are consumers of the services we get from the Kenya Medical Supplies Agency. So I think this is a very good move. The only problem I have is that we still are approaching this matter as if everything must be resolved from the ministry. Because, Mr. Speaker, if you read through the bill, it is proposed that other than the representation of the principal secretaries from the ministries I've mentioned, the Ministry of Finance, Ministry of Health, and Ministry of Devolution, again, the minister has been given a leeway to pick 4 other board members. So in total, the central government is going to pick 7 representatives, and then the Council of Governors will pick 2. I'd rather we give more representation to the Council of Governors so that we have representation of 2 members picked by the minister, and then we increase the representation for the Council of Governors to be 4. And I think it's last week that we had a public hearing on a bill that has been moved by my good friend, Senator Ali, on cancer. And presentations were made on the need for alternative therapies in the treatment of cancer, that we should not just concentrate on chemotherapy as the only remedy for treatment of cancer, but we can look for other remedies, including nutritional remedies, including herbal. And I'm happy that in this bill, we are now obligating KEMSA to think outside the box and consider making supplies that have nutritional formulations to our county hospitals. Because, Mr. Speaker, what I heard from the presentations during the public hearing is that these nutritional therapies, these herbal therapies, can also provide very good solutions to the treatment of cancer. And I was impressed that some of the presentations were being made by people who are trained medical doctors. So these are not statements that were just being thrown without a basis, but these are from the experts, people who have had one-on-one interactions with patients, people who understand what value nutrition can bring to cancer patients. So I think this bill, by and large, is really progressive. It's good, and I think it's good when you can have a period. When you are doing medical supplies to counties, and you are putting something in the minds of those who are in charge, but at least you need to have a supply in your stocks that is not lesser than 6 months. I think that creates hope that we'll have an end to this issue of shortage of drugs. And Mr. Speaker, if you look at the budgetary allocation of most counties, we give enough. Most counties allocate, I think, the highest sum of allocation to health department. But I assure you, Mr. Speaker, that in most of our health facilities, despite that endeavor by our county governments to provide for what I'll call adequate finance for the Department of Health, there's still a problem with enough medicine in the stocks. And the reason they'll tell you is that we had made requisition. We were promised by KEMSA that these drugs will be delivered on time, but up to now we are waiting for these deliveries. So if we can have a situation where, as we plan, we are sure that we are going to have a stock that is going to last for the next 6 months, that will provide some solution to this issue of shortage of medicine. And Mr. Speaker, you'll be surprised that other than the concerns being raised by the Ministry of Health, in terms of getting the data correct, the other departments don't take health as a matter where they need to have figures, to have statistics. We were, having an engagement with the ministry that is in charge of census. And, they gave us a sample of the questionnaire that they are going to use for the coming census. And Mr. Speaker, you'll be surprised. There is nothing touching on health. And we are trying to ask, these people that, does it even concern you that even for the government to plan, you need to slot in something on your questionnaire, where families should respond. For example, how many families are taking care of people who are suffering from terminal illness? Or even to say, what is your response to the medical care that you have managed to get from the county hospitals, from the referral hospitals, so that we have figures, Mr. Speaker. We need to know in our counties how many people have been, afflicted by this disease, or cancer, or any other terminal illness, so that we as a country we're able to see that in our budgetary allocations, this is what we need to set aside for enough provision of drugs for the terminally ill. And also, we need to know, in terms of our senior citizens, those aged 65 and above, and who are getting, Medicare in our counties, do they get enough supplies of medicine for the conditions that they are suffering from? Because I was once in Australia, Mr. Speaker, and you'll be surprised that in Australia, Mr. Speaker, anybody suffering from cancer gets free supply of drugs from any pharmacist. It's the responsibility of the government to meet the cost. So if you go to a hospital and the medicine that which has been prescribed is not there, you can go with your prescription to any chemist, you will get the supply, and then the government will meet the cost. I think that's the favor that we should, return to our senior citizens, and I think we should be pondering as we look at this bill how that can be achieved in our counties. So in supporting this bill, Mr. Speaker, I hope that it will provide a solution. And I think the only solution I'm thinking about is timely distribution and supplies of medicines to our facilities at the county level. I hope that by this House enacting this bill, we'll be getting a solution to that problem of ensuring that we provide adequate Medicare to the people who reside in our counties. With those few remarks, Mr. Speaker, I support.
Senator Dr. Abdullahi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, sir, the problem with the Senate is that we pass very good amendments, and when it goes to the other side, it's shelved or things are changed. These amendments are good. The county government is the main customer of KEMSA. But the national government still wants to stick back to it and handle it like their baby, which is a very big mistake. Yesterday, the Committee of Health, we went to Laikipia, where there's a problem, Mr. Speaker, and 61 doctors were sacked. And when we talked to the governor and said, why did you say oh, you know, they left their job, they were away for 21 days, and I sacked them. That is the attitude of some of the governors. And I'll say it's unfortunate and it's wrong. And also the senators. Look at this house now. It is empty. You know, we have a problem. People just want to be seen up to 4 when they can be seen over the TV. They don't want to come and contribute to issues which are devolution-oriented. This KEMSA and health is mainly devolution. We are killing devolutions ourselves, and we are supposed to protect it. This is a very unfortunate thing, Mr. Speaker. When it comes to health, everywhere you go, there are unions fighting counties. The counties don't respond in the right way. The national government does not want to let go health. So there's this tug of war. And in the end result, it's going to cause a lot of problem in the counties. Some few days ago, it was Kirinyaga. Now it's Laikipia. I'm told Kisumu has a problem. It will go to every county, every county. How are we going to deal with these things? These are not only labor issues, okay? Sometimes when you talk to the doctors, they have genuine concerns. And when some of the members here say that if counties don't have supply of medicine, and a doctor prescribes medicine, what will, if this doctor tells these patients to go and get this medicine from outside, if that becomes a crime, where will he direct this patient? You know, we should not always associate everything with corruption or with bad intentions. A doctor has no alternative. A doctor's job is to look at this patient, see what this patient requires, and write a prescription. It is the responsibility of the county government to buy and provide this medicine in the hospitals. So there are issues which are for the doctors, there are issues which are for the county government, and when you look at both sides, as far as I am concerned, they are all guilty. KEMSA is mostly, as I said at the beginning, supposed to be dealing with counties. Some counties buy from KEMSA at quarterly levels, and they supply what they have. What they don't have, they buy from outside. But the national government wants to keep everything. Like now, counties are given, if you say, well, you check for the budget of health in all the counties combined, it's like 3 billion. And the national government Ministry of Health has 96 billion. What is it doing with that money? Why should it keep that money? Okay, counties send doctors for postgraduate training. They pay their salary, they pay their money. When they come back, these doctors will want to be promoted There's no money for that, to perform that. I think something should be done, and I'm working on something that when it comes to possibly postgraduates, the national government should take care of them. They pay for them, they give their salary, and then when they qualify, they send these doctors to where they are required, not just where they came from. If we were told yesterday, I don't know whether it's the truth in Laikipia, that there are 35 doctors who Laikipia government, county government sent for postgraduate. If they all come back, the county cannot even absorb them. So what will happen? So there's a lot of push and pull when it comes to this issue of health. And health as a devolved function, the most important devolved function, the way I see it, the Senate should make sure that instead of always saying this or that and that, they try and support the counties when it comes to health, and because this is our docket and this is what we are supposed to do, Mr. Speaker. When you talk about now the board, as the former Senator Omugeni said earlier, the board is mainly comprised of people from national government. The two we are trying to add now, out of the 4 the minister was supposed to appoint, the 2 which we say the county council of governors should appoint, might not even go through the National Assembly. The CEO of KEMSA is appointed by that board through the minister. The CEO is responsible and answerable to the Minister of Health. So what happens? Everybody knows where the bread is buttered. So they will always respond to the national government instead of the county government, or the Senate for that matter, which is supposed to oversight and look into these issues. Mr. Speaker, sir, the problem here in Kenya now is when you look at devolution, and the way I said earlier, the national government want to take back this I'm sorry, sir, I might go off the mark sometime because I saw the union of doctors in Laikipia. The way they do things, when ministry calls for a meeting, the union is called. The union and the ministry are in cohort. They're trying to bring health back to the national government. And now counties and people at the grassroots have realized that it is better that health is devolved. So as Senate, not as health committee or as this, but as Senate, I think we should put our foot down to make sure, to try and solve this issue and what we can do about it. You know what happened to the Health Act? How it just went through our back and it was signed. How other things are being done without the health being consulted. I think this is not the way to go. Counties should also make sure that at least most of their drugs they buy from KEMSA. Some of them don't. Some of them, I'm told, just go to chemists and send millions to chemists. That's not the way to go. When you can easily buy from KEMSA, if you don't get from KEMSA, there's other organizations like MEDS, which have proper drugs, which are cheap, instead of going to chemists, or you do you buy these things in an unorthodox manner. If counties, the way you're supposed to do is that from the dispensary level, the health centers, the sub-county hospitals, the referral hospitals, these things, they do it from the lower level, and it comes up to the CECs who will give this order. If the KEMSA cannot provide all the drugs which were requested, then the county government pays for what they have. If they can buy 60%, 70% from KEMSA, KEMSA will also be functional, it will be profitable, it's able to work proper. But if we don't do these things in the proper way and you do it behind everybody's back and you want to enrich ourselves, then I think we will have a problem, Mr. Speaker. When it comes to the personnel, we are talking of UHC, we are talking of other things. UHC cannot work without proper personnel. And as one of the members said here earlier, the doctors should be well taken care of, the nurses should be taken care of, the clinical officers, and all the health staff. If you remember well, I don't know, 2017 or something, there was a CBA which was agreed with the doctors, with the nurses, with the clinical officers. That money is still outstanding, over 11 billion. We have tried what we can even in the health committee, in finance committee, but the county governments cannot afford it. The national government does not want to help out these issues. We are talking of UHC. How will you manage? All these things will fail because people are not serious about the way I see it, because without personnel, how will UHC function? The 4 pilot areas, counties, the money they're being given, we are told 700-something million, 750-something or 67 million. 60 or 70% is supposed to go to KEMSA. 30% is supposed to go to the counties. But when you ask around, you hear a lot of funny stories, Mr. Speaker. So these issues are not straight. We need to do more. And I think as Senate, we should put our foot down to support counties and to support devolution and health. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Professor Samson Ongeri.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to contribute on what I think is the most important piece of legislation, the bill which is before us. During my time as a professional, the KEMSA was set up to be able to rationalize and ensure that in the procurement of drugs and medical equipment was synchronized so that we don't have this everyday language of shortages when people appeared in any health facility, be it where there's a dispensary or a health center or a district hospital or a national hospital or indeed the referral hospital. Because one of the most problematic issues at that time was the lack of drugs being available or the availability of drugs in all these peripheral centers. And this was one of the reasons why there was tremendous motivation during the constitutional making process that people felt that they were excluded from the health packages that have been rolled out to counties or to districts at that time, today now called counties. And they needed a devolved system. And they wanted health and agriculture devolved fully to the county governments. Now, when you devolve a system, you must be aware, Mr. Speaker, that you must devolve not only a system, but you must devolve the expertise that is inherent in that system. Why do we talk of this particular KEMSA bill being amended? And I thank Senator for bringing up for the amendment. It's first of all to leverage and maximize the efficiencies that are related to the procurement, for mass procurement. Through that process, we must also be able to create the economies of scale so that a drug which is procured individually may become much more expensive, can be able to be obtained when you have this mass procurement in a with big discounts, and those discounts must be passed on to the county governments. That was the essence of creating KEMSA. The other essence of creating KEMSA is that there is a plethora of drugs being peddled by drug peddlers all over the place, and with a very sweet language of trying to cut out and tell you that this drug is efficacious or is suitable for a particular condition of illness or disease. And Kenyans have fallen victim of these quacks who go around bring this type of drugs to the markets and telling them this can be able to heal a particular disease here and there. What is the net effect of that exercise? That whereas there were certain diseases that were comfortably and peacefully treated with a simple penicillin, they have now developed resistance to particular bacterial infections, and therefore treating chronic illnesses that have developed resistances to basic drugs that are useful and essential in the market is now becoming a major problem. That's why you are having so much of this chronicity of illnesses within the society, and people don't get better sooner or later. So that's one of the problems, that in getting KEMSA to be in charge of procurement of drugs and medical equipment was to be able to assess the efficacy, the molecule that will be able to deliver the minimum dose that will treat a particular disease and be able to give you a cure on a prescribed day, 1 week or 10 days, whatever is the prescription from qualified doctors. Now, that is the essence of ensuring that KEMSA gave that expertise of efficacy to be able to treat these drugs. The second element why KEMSA was set up is to be able to impart safety. You can have a drug, but is it safe? Is this the drug which is being manufactured by properly registered pharmaceutical industries, or these are from the side kiosks that are being peddled and the patients fall victim of these drugs? So it was important that the element of safety is factored in. Then there was the question of quality. I've talked about efficacy, whether it is enough dosage. I've talked about the safety of that drug. And I've also talked about the affordability of that drug, equality and the affordability. So these were the elements that we now this bill is seeking transfer to the county governments, because they are the people who are in charge of health at the county level. And unless we are careful, we may pass on a monster and create a bigger monster than we ever started with. That's why I'm bringing up all these elements into the fore so that we can see where we stand. There is the fourth element that is so critical, that these drugs must be available and distributed on a timely fashion. I will invite you, Mr. Speaker, to go to your county, or my county in Kisii, or anywhere else. And when you put a simple question to the county executive, whether the drugs, where have you ordered your drugs from? They will say from KEMSA. Well and good, sounds fine. Where are the packages of drugs? They will show you the packages of drugs. Just take an extra interest to open up those boxes. They do not contain the very basic, essential drugs that are necessary and important for running the health institution at the peripheral level. The bulk of those receipts, the procurement of boxes that you see there are condoms. I'm not castigating condoms, but that's what you get. Simple equipment that is used for socialization. So I am worried, Mr. Speaker, that Kenyans are being told, counties are being told, yes, we have had a supply of medical supplies from KEMSA. And because people have been made to believe in KEMSA, people say, we have got adequate supplies and they will be delivered to our health centers and to our dispensaries. Unfortunately, they are not there. As a medical professor, my major interest would be that in that kit, do we have the essentials like the immunization packages through the cold storage? And I say so because if you do timely immunization, And if you are able to take care of nutritional requirements of growing children and the society, and you are able to take care of the environment under which people are staying, that's what I call public health. Preventive and promotive health care. That should be the major function where major resources must be spent by county governments. I guarantee you, Mr. Speaker, that you reduce the disease burden by more than 50%. Going that route. What does that mean? You also reduce the bed capacity. You reduce the bed occupancy in hospitals, because occupancy in the bed is curative medicine. When you have more people in the hospital, you incur more costs, more expenses than is required. And therefore, I urge the county government, through the Council of Governors, that they must actually request for a bigger stake in this KEMSA representation. Because if you are going to have a representation which is weak, you cannot be able to get the kind of services I've already enumerated above. You'll be told, yes, we'll send you your kit, and when it comes, it's incomplete. There is even a bigger headache, the fifth headache that I would like to call upon county governments to be aware of, that some of these drugs have been procured, unfortunately, by fellows who do not care, by looking at the shelf life of those drugs, the expiry dates. You find some of the suppliers who will come and push to the KEMSA drugs in the name of, these are efficacious, fine, but when you look at the shelf life of those drugs, they have only got about 6 months to go. And when you do bulk supplies to all the county governments, they have absolutely no clue of the kind of supplies that they are getting from the KEMSA. They don't look at the lifespan of that of those drugs, and therefore they lie there. So when you go to the county government and the county health sector, you are told, Mr. Senator, we have plenty of drugs here, but if you open those drugs, you will find that the bulk of them have expired. And the bulk of them are those drugs that are not being used in that area frequently. What's the point of supplying people with malarial drugs when you know the epicenter of malaria is in a particular regions? And you supply the malarial drugs in areas where malaria is not rampant. Obviously, they will expire. We have a classical case, and I was very pained the other day when I saw a mother crying, just simply because there was no snake venom, anti-snake venom in Makwen, in Kitui. It's a very sad story when we know that in those areas, in these arid and semi-arid areas, and I worked in Wajir as a medical officer, and I know that one of the biggest enemy that you will find during hot periods are snakes. You will find them dining with you in your bed, coming to look for coolness, drinking water in the houses. And if you're not careful, they will just pour that poison to you and you'll be dead. So for one of the most essential kits that must be available in all these arid and semi-arid areas where the snakes are rampant is the anti-snake venom. What do you find? You find snake venom in areas where there are no snakes. But the areas where there are rampant snakes, there is no anti-snake venom, the anti-snake venom. So we lose patients, we lose people. So KEMSA should be acquainted with what I call the geographical survey, the medical geographical survey of pattern of diseases. There are other diseases like schistosomiasis in cesspools in Ukambani in other areas, in other places. When you have sleeping sickness in Lambwe Valley, therefore, they should do a demarcation where you find some of the conditions, medical conditions are rampant, and be able to spread out those drugs and supplies to match the medical conditions that are prevalent, that are important in that area, so that they don't run short of supplies. That's why the county governments have to resort to ad hoc purchases of these drugs from the shelves. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, this is a bill that's more than what you see written here. That we go wrong in the procurement of these drugs and medical equipment, then we are done. Sometimes in developed economies, drugs may run their course and they are expired. There is what we call rewinding. There are certain pharmaceutical industries that can rewind those drugs. We have also become victims of what we call intellectual property drugs. They are 10 times more expensive than the generic drugs. Generic, it doesn't mean that they don't have potency. It doesn't mean that they are not efficacious. It does not mean that they are not quality drugs. They are indeed quality drugs. But these are the drugs that can be procured because they have already, Mr. Speaker, I feel that I want to enrich this debate. When time comes, please add me some minutes, because it's such an important topic that I think we are richer in this debate than just glossing over it. You can rewind those drugs and be able to get a life out of them. And they are important, they are critical, and they are efficacious. I will give you an example. When I was the Minister for Health, we had the HIV epidemic. It was a prevalence rate of 14%. The intellectual property rights, the patent drugs were out of this world in terms of cost. $1,000 to be able to treat a patient. Nobody will afford that kind of thing. So we went, and under the WTO, World Trade Organization, I looked at the law, I looked under TRIPS agreement, Section 6 of that. If you have an emergency in a country, you can declare an emergency, and then that will allow you to import what you call generic drugs. What did I do? I made a request. Parliament held its session in Mombasa, and the only agenda on that session is the HIV pandemic in this country. 14% on the average. The other areas were the other one. By the time we reached there, people were saying, what do you want to do? Professor Ongeri said, yes. One, that let's amend the law, be able to go through the WTO trade-related activities, Article 6, and import the generic drugs from Brazil, from India, and from Cuba. In fact, Cuba were producing the molecules of HIV/AIDS. We even produce, these are the ones which are being brought there. What happened to the prices? From $1,000 to $200. Today, they are below, I think, $100. That's what you must be able to study the market of drugs and see how, whether they have done their course of 10 years or 15 years, depending upon what patency they had given that drug, and go for cheaper but more efficacious drugs that will help our populations. So, Mr. Speaker, what am I saying? I'm saying this, that if we're going to allow county governments to partner with the national government, then it must be precedent upon this, that the county government will have a bigger say through this bill. And if need be, further amendments should be done, that they have a bigger say because they're the greatest consumer. Why do I say so, Mr. Speaker? Because I know that today, the national government through the Ministry of Health is only in charge of policy and the infectious diseases, pandemics, control of infectious diseases, and also the control of the referral hospitals. How many are there? the Kenyatta National Hospital, Moi Referral Hospital. Here now the third one is in Nyeri, in Othaya. That's it. And then, of course, the infectious diseases hospitals. That's all that they have. So where is this budget going? So the next step that we must take as Senate is to be able to ensure that government gives the bulk resources from the national government to county governments to take care of health facilities. And I think that's the way we should go. So I have no quarrel with these amendments, that when we tied up, that the two members who are going to the KEMSA should be able to take care of these arrangements, that finally, when this is agreed upon, that this bill should be scrutinized further to ensure that all those arrangements, particularly
Senator Professor Ongeri, I add 5 minutes.
Yes, yeah. Because I know that the human risk, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Because I know one of the most pernicious headache is the human resource in county governments. The human resource in county is becoming a problem. County governments do not know how to handle the human resource. Some have gone for easy way, carte blanche dismissal. That does not solve the labor relations problems. These are specialized people. You must give them a hearing. You must listen to their wants. You must listen to their problems. You must try and accommodate them. And as we expand the level 5 institutions in county governments, all county governments are potentially level 5, they are potentially level 5 hospitals. And with level 5 hospitals, with the kind of certification we have in treatment and the equipment which are being supplied to these hospitals, you need experts to be able to run these machines. How can you expect experts to run those machines and you pay them peanuts and you do not recognize their working hours, their facilities? Sixth hospital, and we were only about 10 African doctors. The rest were white people. And you know, we never had even a single time to sleep. We worked 24 hours, but we were devoted to that work. How do we get our doctors being devoted to work jealously for our own people, for our own patients, for our own parents, for our own sisters and brothers, for our own relatives, and Kenyans at large? Kenyans are suffering, particularly the disease burden. We have cancer as a big scourge in this country. That's why the cost on the management of cancer throughout the country is enormous. All of you are privy to the realization that you are being called upon for fundraising for cancer patients, either in this country or going outside the country. Now, if only we can do, there's no point going to go and check somebody with cancer when this cancer is at stage 4. It's too late. No amount of money will help that individual or that person. But if we had proper screening facilities in our hospitals, in our clinics, and we put this as part of our priority, now that the incidence of cancer is much higher than what we had anticipated, then we should be able, this is why I said the medical supply kit should include some of this testing and some of this screening in our hospitals, so that when we screen, we can be able then to detect some of these complicated diseases at this late stage. And if we are able to detect them, then we can be able to offer treatment on a timely basis, and you save life. So I support this bill with a few provisos, that when it comes to the Council of Governors being represented in this KEMSA, they should demand a bigger voice. If need be, the CEO. Number 2, that when it comes to the division of revenue, we want to know that from national government, some of these delegated, devolved functions like health, agriculture, and other areas should have a bigger cake sliced off. In fact, I don't know why we're even arguing on 327 billion Kenya shillings. It should be much higher than that, because all these complications we're inviting ourselves to is because we have not been able to give proper health care, preventive and promotive care in our institutions. I thank you, Madam Speaker, and I support this motion.
Senator Haji Faria Ali.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for allowing me to support this bill. Madam Speaker, I also wish to thank Senator for bringing this timely bill. Madam Speaker, as you're aware, as per Section 96 of the Constitution, Senate is here to protect counties. And Madam Speaker, this amendment, the Kenya Medical Supplies Authority Amendment Bill is speaking to that, Madam Speaker. Senator Mary is really performing her role in terms of ensuring that counties are well represented, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, also in Section 4, there is also a provision whereby it allows county government to enter into partnership with KEPSA for appropriate supply of drugs and medical supplies, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, in terms of the board as provided under Section 5, Madam Speaker, that is where I still have a problem, Madam Speaker. As much as we have provided 2 slots for counties, Madam Speaker, out of 9 slots, 2 slots is too few for county government, Madam Speaker. Because everybody else is appointed, like even finance appoints one, another, there are 3 PSs which are sitting in this board. Madam Speaker, I have a problem with that, Madam Speaker. Because if all these people represent government, surely there is no need, I think 2 should be enough. One from finance, because in most boards a representative of finance is must because of financing of the functions of the board. And then Ministry of Health, leave it there. Why do we need another devolution slot, a PS for devolution? In my view, we don't need that. Let us replace another position for county government, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, in terms of Section 5, subsection 4, I can see in terms of the composition of that board, we must have a procurement specialist, we must have somebody from pharmacist specialist, and another person who has knowledge of commerce and finance. Madam Speaker, all these positions, Madam Speaker, they have their own board. I think let us limit in terms of these people who must be there. They must be a member of each of those professional bodies that cover those roles, Madam Speaker. Because I know procurement and supply, there is a Kenya supply chain, something, I don't remember the exact title, but I know it is there. And then pharmacists, there is pharmacist and poisons and medical board, they must be a member of that. And then there is also the finance and commerce, there is ISPAC. So let us put, because why I am insisting them to be member of a professional body is because those professional bodies, Madam Speaker, are regulated by, they are regulated by their own, they regulate their own membership. And therefore, if a member is not able to perform what they ought to perform, sometimes they are disciplined by their own professional bodies, Madam Speaker. But if we just put people who are specialists, Madam Speaker, who are not a member of any professional body, yet we are putting them in as some specialists, then, Madam Speaker, in case of an issue, we have no mechanism of following up, Madam Speaker. I agree with Professor Samongeri. The fact that when procurement is done in bulk, there is economies of scale, Madam Speaker. But what often happens, Madam Speaker, you find that most government-run entities are even much more expensive. Despite the fact that if you procure in bulk, you're supposed to get economies of scale, but due to corruption, Madam Speaker, sometimes that economy of scale benefits are never harvested by the people of this country, Madam Speaker. And at times, Madam Speaker, value of money is not taken into consideration, Madam Speaker. So in terms of the composition of the board, there are 9 board members. For me, I believe at least 4 members should come from the counties, Madam Speaker, because health is 100% devolved, and all the medical supplies and everything that these people need, I mean, the KEPSA is supplying, is for counties, Madam Speaker. So for me, for them to
So are you, Senator, are you proposing an amendment?
Yes,
to the
Madam Speaker.
Composition of the board?
Yes, Madam Speaker.
Then you need to probably find a way of putting across that amendment.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I appreciate your comment, and I'm bringing an amendment, and I'm just trying to justify why those amendments are necessary, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, also in terms of KEPSA having, Kenya Medical and Supplies Authority having a presence in counties, one of the other things that I think should also be canvassed, because if they don't have currently, and they're all based in Nairobi, then in terms of even, I like the fact that we are proposing let them have supplies for 6 months. But if they are all in Nairobi, sometimes when counties, of course, we urge the counties to plan ahead. But if the very essence authority that is essential for continuous supply to county government is based in Nairobi, then they are not extremely useful to counties. So maybe that is also another issue that that needs to be looked at, Madam Speaker. I am not an health expert, but probably that would add will strengthen this amendment, Madam Speaker. The other issue that I wanted to discuss is the issue around regulation, Madam Speaker. If we leave the regulation the way it is open-ended like this, the cabinet secretary might not be in a hurry to make regulations for this very important amendment, Madam Speaker. And therefore, I also bring an amendment that they bring the amendment within 1 year, and that should be included under, regulation under clause 21 of this bill, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, this is a timely bill, Madam Speaker. It is a bill that is very friendly to counties, Madam Speaker, because if in the spirit of the Constitution, medical health is devolved, then functions should also follow in legislation in terms of ensuring that that is made, Madam Speaker. And then in terms of even procurement, in this under section manner of discharge of function, one of the things that really made me proud is application of sound commercial principles in the procurement, storage, distribution, and other medical facility, Madam Speaker. So if you have all those things in place, and Madam Speaker, sometimes we make brilliant laws, Madam Speaker. But of course, my fears also I share with my Senator, Dr. Abdullahi, that sometimes we make good legislation in Senate, they are changing the other house, and they have no better ideas to improve. They don't do it right. The other issue that we suffer from this country is we have laws, but in terms of implementation of those laws is not done properly, Madam Speaker. And sometimes I wonder, even in our house, I think there is need sometimes for implementation committee so that we make sure that everything that the resolution we pass, because we come up with good legislation, we come up with good resolution, we come up with good, but in terms of follow-up to ensure that laws that are passed are followed up is a bit lacking, Madam Speaker. And governors, just do a lot of, conduct that lack sometimes integrity, or sometimes are not prudent for the people they govern. But and then there is somehow, even when they break the law, there is impunity and there is nobody to follow up to ensure that the laws are followed and there is no consequences, Madam Speaker. So, Madam Speaker, this is a timely bill and I support, Madam Speaker, and I thank you for allowing me to contribute.
Senator Masitsa Naomi Shionga.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to support the bill sponsored by Senator Mary, Senator, on the KEMSA, Kenya Medical Supplies Authority Amendment Bill. Madam Speaker, this bill, as my colleagues are saying, it is timely and it needs a lot of scrutiny because it is a bill that is touching lives of our people, especially when it comes to universal health care. That is one of the big four that we need to achieve, and the big four that the President is urging Kenyans to enable him achieve during his term. Madam Speaker, KEMSA has had so many challenges in the past. And before I go to the challenges that it has had, this bill or this particular legislation, the responsibility before even the developed country, the counties, it was to enhance harmonization on procurement process of our drugs and other supplies, controls of stockhouse, to facilitate the supply chain of medical equipments and other products, medical products, standardized drugs, proper monitoring and evaluation in the system, especially in the health system, properly dealing with the transparency of these drugs, not forgetting the safeguarding of safe drugs that are going to be consumed by the citizens, especially when we are talking citizens of Kenya. However, the management and the forcefulness and how it has been being managed since the devolved government came into place has been of apathy. And healthcare or universal healthcare cannot be achieved when we have push and pull. That's why I'm saying this bill is timely and it's going to assist the fragmentation of functions that are being witnessed through the government, the county governments and the national government, which is fighting for superiority. If you look at the bill framework or the bill's framework, it talks about the inclusivity, whereby the framework is providing the Kenya Medical Supplies Authority to collaborate and work with the county government. What else do we need? If we are concentrating power at the national level, apart from power, we are concentrating funds that needs to go straight to the county government so that it can assist at the national level, we are killing devolution. Hence, we are killing our own citizens because we are not enabling any function to function. Right now, we have revenue bill that is collapsing, or how it might have been collapsed. But when we look at this bill, it might give some hope. If passed, it might give some hope to Kenyans and to county government. Because if you look at clause 4, where it talks about partnership with the county government to establish drawing rights, and I repeat, drawing rights, and maintain appropriate supply chain system for drugs and medical equipment. I have worked in the Ministry of Health for over 25 years, and I know what it means by procurement and supply chain that is transparent. It enables standardization. It enables quality equipment and drugs. It enables quality services to reach its intended population. And if this bill, as it is stating, that the county government, who own the devolved function of this healthcare, is going to be achieved as it is, then we are going to achieve, through partnership, what we intend to. Madam Speaker, if we look at consultation, in any forum, in any partnership, like the county government and the national government, especially in healthcare, when we avoid the word consultation, then we shall miss everything. And in this bill, in clause 6, where the bill proposes the amendment of section 19 of the Act to provide further responsibility that the authority to ensure and console the county government prior to procuring of drugs for the county. We are saving our counties from the push issue that has been there. The KEMSA has been fond of pushing drugs, pushing unnecessary equipment, something that we have been struggling since the life of this parliament. It is going to control it, if only consultation can yield its purpose. And drugs need to be procured in regards to its requirement. You do not need to push drugs or medicine or any equipment to a facility that does not. So when we console, then we know the needs that particular county has, and hence procuring the right equipment and drugs to that particular county government. Madam Speaker, the business of KEMSA, when it comes to maybe procuring of these drugs again, it might have been facilitating the country as a whole. But when we look at the county government, they are still also, and I want to say, our county governments are still, yes, struggling with how to come up with structured functions, especially in healthcare. And that's why we are seeing so many strikes are on. They do not have healthcare. And I want to appeal that this bill looks at the maturity of anything that they are, or any function that they are giving. As much as we are proposing KEMSA to carry the value of enhancing healthcare services, let the county government also be responsible and ready to assist its citizens. Because representation and inclusion should be of value to its people, especially those who are receiving these services, unlike enriching people at the county government, just a few. Because where there is struggle, and especially when we know in our country here, when people hear about procurement, somebody is always thinking about fattening their pockets. County governments need to come to terms and know that even if, as much as we are pushing this, we are not saying that we are going to concentrate power to them to procure what is not necessary for the people. So what I'm saying here is that KEMSA has had so many challenges, even before the proclamation of our constitution. but it is the highest time. We need to embrace devolved functions that are, and one is healthcare, so that we can enrich our counties. We can make sure that universal healthcare to be achieved through transparency and through entities that are responsible and through entities that are going to work, and functions and systems that are going to be transparent and that are going to be monitored. Otherwise, I support this bill. I support it 100%, and I want to say that it is only through this bill and the amendment that my colleagues will put in that will enhance universal health care achievement and the supply of this to be achieved. Lastly, I want to say that the kits that will be sent through KEMSA or through county government, or that will be procured, let them have, as my colleague has said, all the necessary, as it has been, all the necessary equipment and all the necessary medicine that are needed in that particular or in specific areas or regions that will be useful. Such like rapid test kits, essential drugs, just as it has been, not just unnecessary because one wants to make wealth out of it. Thank you, Madam Speaker, and again, I support.
Senator Milgo, Alice Chepkorir.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for also giving me this chance to contribute to this very important bill with just on the medical supplies authority. Madam Speaker, this bill has come at the right time, particularly so when we already have devolved units, and in this case, once this bill is passed, it will go a long way in aligning Kenya Medical Supplies Authority with the requirements of the county. Madam Speaker, it is a challenge that to date, medical, or in this case health, which is a devolved function, is still held within the national government, and that is why Kenya Medical Supplies Authority is still supplying most of the medical requirements of the counties, even without regard to the necessary requirements, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, these ones has actually caused a lot of suffering to the health units in these devolved units in terms of either delaying the drugs supplied, or in this case, at times, the counties, the medical facilities in the counties even ends up getting experts medicine, Madam Speaker. It is actually quite a challenge when there is expired medicine, because once medicine expires, already that is poison, and it means, therefore, that it cannot treat a particular disease, and that is the reason why, even of late, there are very many health cases that are coming up, even such as cancers, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, it is quite unfortunate, even as we are speaking right now, that there are still the medical facilities that were procured by the Kenya Medical Supplies Authority that have not even been put to use. Today it is collecting dust, and the reason was because of the fact that this authority simply went and procured facilities, Madam Speaker, that was not even required by that particular county, or in this case, after procuring, there is no staff that has got the skills to be able to use the particular machines, Madam Speaker. I think this bill, again, under clause 5, will in this case, open a way to ensure that in the board of this particular authority, at least there will be representation from the county governments. And in any case, while they have given two to me, I think there should have been more than 2 representatives, because the major people of interest in this particular case are the counties, Madam Speaker. And in any, however, with these 2, I think then this will be a voice to the counties. It will help in procurement. Needless to say here that when Kenya medical authorities procure medicine, normally the procurement in this case is very high, Madam Speaker. That is the procuring amount normally goes at a very high level, Madam Speaker, as opposed to when the counties can be able to deal with their own procurement entities, and in this case be able to negotiate based on their abilities, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I think instead of the board being nominated by the national government alone, I think the Council of Governors should also be allowed to take part in issues of nominating the board, Madam Speaker, so that in this case, they'll be able to provide the necessary kinds of people, and in this case, this same type of people will be able to serve them well. Madam Speaker, decisions that are normally made, as I said, are very significant to the counties. However, in this case, we find that when Kenya Medical Authority supplies are the ones who procure, these ones are prone to a lot of corruption, and in any case, that is why we find that our people are still seeking medical attention in the Kenyatta National Hospital and other national medical facilities, Madam Speaker, in a state of actually seeking medical supplies in their own counties. Madam Speaker, Clause 6, which proposes to amend Section 19 of the Act to oblige the authority to that effect, in this case, will go a long way to ensure that at least the county government will have a say, and in any case, be able to deal with issues of the health units in a better way. Madam Speaker, I'm sure if this bill will be able to pass, our people will be saved too much money, because normally, like in my county, in most cases, we have our counties as of now controlling level 1 to 5 facilities, and like in my county, Longisa Hospital, which is supposed to be the largest hospital, normally would lack certain drugs, it would lack certain facilities, and our people are forced to come to Kenyatta National Hospital as well as Moi Referral Hospital, Madam Speaker. And in any case, there are many sick people with very humble backgrounds, and they may not be able to even afford the medication in these particular facilities, let alone even affording the transportation, Madam Speaker. And in any case, I think the evolution was supposed to take that is services right at the doorsteps of the people within the county. Madam Speaker, I'm sure if this bill will be ascended to, our counties will be saved. Not only the counties will be saved, but as well the people of those particular counties will be saved the nightmare of having to seek medical treatment elsewhere, Madam Speaker. Finally, we used to say that normally with the medical authority supplies being controlled by the cabinet secretary, what it is that normally sometimes they propose regulations that do not even augur well with the counties, Madam Speaker. And I'm sure once this bill is passed, what it is that the cabinet secretary will be able to consult the county governors, in this case, to ensure that the county devolution units are, in this case, cared for, Madam Speaker, as captured in Clause 7 of this bill. Madam Speaker, I'm sure this is one of the bills that in this case has been, in this case, is one of the most important bills, Madam Speaker, particularly when it comes to health facilities, more particularly right now when our government is interested in issues of universal health care. We are talking about universal health care, and in any case, for that one to be able to succeed in the Big Four agenda, what happens is that we need to ensure that issues of supplies of medical, supplies of equipment, and management, as well as the board in this case, is streamlined in such a way that this one will facilitate the medical supplies as well as the services that are offered to the people right in the counties, Madam Speaker. With that, Madam Speaker, I support this bill.
I see no further requests, and I am informed that the mover of this bill, being Senator Mary Senator, is on official duties outside the country and therefore is not able to make a reply. I therefore defer the reply to another date. Honorable Senators, we move to the next order.
Order number 11, the County Hall of Fame Bill, Senate Bills number 39 of 2018, second reading.
Honorable Senators, I have done some consultation. I am informed that the rest of the business of the day, that is order number 11 to order number 19, may not be processed today. For various reasons, the movers are not available, and I therefore defer the rest of the orders, that is orders 11 to 19. Order, Senators. There being no other business for the day, Honorable Senators, it is now time to adjourn the House. The Senate therefore stands adjourned until Wednesday, 3rd July 2019 at 2:30 p.m.